For those who are new or unfamiliar with my content, I would like to give a disclaimer. Slow Damage has an extremely self-destructive main character, and his nonchalant comments about his lack of concern for himself does trigger my nervous laughter. If you'd like to view my content that covers darker and triggering subjects like this one, please consume it responsibly and know that this content is not for minors. I want to emphasize that if you experience any of the severe symptoms that Towa does, I highly encourage that you seek professional help rather than view this playthrough. Good evening, and welcome back to Slow Damage, Part 8. Correct. So last time we played Slow Damage, we were in the throes of the Toono and Taku division, Takusatsu fight. Sorry, that was terrible. We were in the middle of a gang war, actually, and Taku is out here acting buck wild, adding to the problems. So yes, so we are deep in Taku's chapter, and it has been wild, and somehow in the middle of it I have also run into Mayu's ending for some reason. That still makes me laugh. I can't get over it. It's been a whole part and I still haven't gotten over it. But yes, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but you know, broken record and all, but we're gonna try to get through Taku's chapter for real today, because I think we should be nearing the end of Taku's chapter, unless his chapter is just this long. I mean, I'm very curious. I'm very curious as to how this story will end, because at least Taku's chapter, because there's no way that they're gonna get out unscathed unless Toono is jacked up, you know, or Sakaki comes and jacks up Toono. I don't know. I really don't know what's gonna happen in this situation. Anything can happen. And also we've discovered that Taku's a much sadder man than I initially thought. I mean, I assumed he was pretty sad. I mean, they all live in Shinkomi, and anybody living in Shinkomi, especially if you're a doctor, seems kind of sussy, you know what I'm saying? It's like there's a reason you're in Shinkomi, you know. So okay, you know, let's just get to it. The last time we left off, we left Towa in the middle of a conversation with the girly over here. Yeah, okay, so let's get to it. Let's save our mans here. She's so cute though, I can't lie. she's obviously like supposed to be the cuter one compared to everybody else, like as in like naturally cute, I guess. Okay, let's continue. Wait here real quick. Okay, we're back. The short-haired woman walked further into the room while I stood near the door, nonchalantly observing its residents. Gosh, I can't talk. There was something off about these women. I'd sensed it during the makeover, and I sensed it again right now. They were staring blankly into space like they were all sick with a head cold. Sporadically, they would twitch a hand or leg, as if to shoo a fly. I recognized it as the telltale twitch of a tweaker. The distinct cloying smell that permeated this room was in fact their meth heads. Oh no! Was in fact the smell of meth. Did Toono get them addicted in order to keep them from thinking clearly? Well, I mean, you know, that is a technique. That said, these women were all carefully managed like property, so you wouldn't know they were addicts at first glance. But try as you might, you can never truly hide the effects of hard drugs. Once the makeup wasn't enough to conceal it, they probably would get restocked. Ooh, he ain't wrong. While I was lost in thought, the woman returned. Okay, girl. As she handed me her cell phone, she looked at me with pursed lips. When she'd first answered the door, she looked like a frightened squirrel, but now she struck me as headstrong. It's a work thing, oh lord. Yeah. Just lay it on. Lay it on thick. Oh boy. She nodded in understanding. He's not, but, you know, we like to pretend. I was like, yeah. I felt no obligation to correct the record, so I just went with it. Did you, work together? No. Yeah, just, you can ask, girl. I shrugged playfully and a relieved smile crept onto her face. Oh, so sweet. I moved a few steps away, then dialed Ray's number, which I luckily had memorized. I knew it. I was like, he's probably gonna call Ray. After a few rings, he picked up. It's me! Oh, poor Ray. Ray's just like, what's going on? His panicked voice blared through the phone's speakers. I lowered my voice so the women wouldn't overhear me. I'm always impressed by how calm Towa can be, but also he's like Toono said, it's like Towa doesn't even have like emotions, you know? Ooh. Towa's so good at this. Like, he's just like, he knows exactly what to say, but also he has like special abilities and all that, because, you know, he's the main character, but... Oh boy. Yeah, not the fun kind, honey. It's never fun. Ray seemed to catch on because he lowered his voice too. Oh. Oh, so sweet. These poor children. Time limit, yes. Yeah, we gots to go. Oh? Come on, boy. Yeah, because we're trapped here in the tower. Oh, Ray. Oh boy. Okay. After I hung up, I deleted the entry in the call history, then returned the phone to its owner. Oh, girl. I wasn't sure if my entire coded message made sense to Ray, but at least I managed to get in touch with him. But before she could finish, someone started pounding on the door. The easygoing atmosphere suddenly turned tense. Ooh. As a furious voice shouted from out the hall, the short-haired woman raced to the door. Ooh. Out of nowhere, the door flew open and a burly man stormed in. As soon as he saw me, he raised his fist. My vision dimmed as the impact collided with my cheek. He hit harder than I was expecting, and I fell to the floor. The sudden violence made the women shriek in terror. Have I seen this dude? Looks new. Maybe I just don't care though. He roared at the short-haired woman, then rounded on me. Oh, okay, yeah, he's the other dude. Sawada. Evidently, that was the name of the guard posted outside my room. Okay, chill. Calm down. Chill, back up. He has a phobia. Oh my gosh, no. He kicked me in the face with his leather. Calm down. Then kicked me in the gut for good measure. First of all, he's like, why are you trying to sleep without women? I'm like, bro, what's the tea? Like, what's the big deal? I don't even know. I'm just like, what? Oh boy. Ow. Calm down. The blow left me winded. Pain radiated to my internal organs. Then he went back to kicking my head and face. Reflexively, I curled into a ball, shielding my skull with my arms, but this didn't deter him. Towa doesn't die that easily, honey. Don't worry. Can you calm down? Sure. Once he had his fill of kicking me, he squatted down. Then he grabbed me by the bangs and hauled me up. Ow! He's sensitive! Do you know who cares? Nobody. With a twisted grin, I swilled the blood in my mouth and spat it in his face. Yes! Do it! Yes! Woo! You go, Towa. Oh, here we go. He slammed my skull down to the floor. My vision went white like the room exploded. The women all screeched as he seized me by the arm and hauled me up again. Yeah. Whatever. You can't get none anyway. With that, he chased me out of the women's room. Ow. Towa's literally sensitive. You can literally snap him into in two. Back in my assigned room, I lay on my back on the bed. I was used to pain, but I hated it whenever my body refused to move like it was supposed to. As I lay there, I drifted in and out of consciousness. Hard to say whether I actually slept or if I just passed out. I glanced over at the clock on the bedside table to find that it was 7 a.m. Morning had rolled around. This room had no windows to speak of, possibly a conscious design choice to create a prison cell, so my sense of time was shot. During the pain, I forced my body into a sitting position. My mouth was still bleeding and I could taste copper. Frankly, I had expected that Tono's men would catch me and the whole thing was entirely unplanned anyway, so I wasn't that fazed. If anything, getting in touch with Ray was a huge accomplishment. There was a chance the chick with the bob cut would blab to Tono, but Ray was smart enough to steer clear of him. Now all that remained was Taku. I had so many conflicting feelings about him. It was his fault I was here at all, so part of me was tempted to ditch him and make a run for it. But even I wasn't that cold-blooded. Ideally, I wanted to help Taku escape while I was at it, assuming he'd even agree to it. Seriously, what was he thinking? It was a mystery. I guess even a soulless husk like me still has some emotions floating around in here. Oh. Just then a knock at the door drew my attention.
Towa.
Oh, Taku. He's allowed to come outside. I could hear Taku's voice on the other side. I slowly eased myself onto my feet and inched my way to the door.
お前、その顔。
Yeah, just another day. When I opened the door and peered out, he looked back at me in shock. Then he stepped inside and shut the door behind him with one hand. In the other, he carried a first aid kit.
何があった？誰にやられたんだ？
He looked at me sternly. I raised both hands in surrender.
まあ、いろいろと。
ごまかすな。くそ。お前がこんな目に遭う必要はないってのに。
I mean, they honestly just wanna, like, throw him in the dump, but, you know, they can't, so. Bitterly, he grimaced.
お前をそうやって焦らせるために、俺が連れてこられたんだろ。
For a moment, he looked gutted, but then he closed his eyes as if to compose himself.
そうだな。トーノにお前の手当てをしろと言われてきたんだが、こんなにひどくやられてるとは思わなかったんだ。
Mercy.
とりあえずベッドに座ってくれ。
All this because he was mad that Towa went into the room with the ladies. He didn't even do nothing. Dragging my stiff, aching body, I did as asked. Looking worried, Taku set the first aid kit on the bedside table and sat down next to me.
顔を見せてくれ。
Taku's so sad. Hold on, before I continue, I just want to say, like, excuse me. Hold on, let me drink. What I've discovered in our playthrough so far with Taku, Taku most certainly loves Towa, whether it's romantically, familially, just in general, platonically, you know. In general, Taku cares very much for Towa. So much so that it's like, whether it's parental, romantic, whatever, it's like it's a very deep love. But Taku also, as he said, you know, he's also a resident of Shinkomi, and that also means that there's darkness in him, and we did catch a glimpse of that darkness, you know. So in the basement, yeah, and as dark as that is, you know, and also there's an implication that Taku was in love with Towa's mom. I don't know how true that is, or if Tono's just being a jerk, but this explains Taku's like moral dilemma, honestly, because he's quite the honest person, which is probably why he's always stressed out, because he has to work for a gang that he's probably not that all into, you know, but he doesn't have a choice, you know. And you know, watching him kind of like fall apart, this seems all because of, you know, his dedication to Towa is very fascinating to see, you know. So yeah, anyway, let's continue. He gingerly cupped my jaw and tilted my head up, squinting his eyes in scrutiny.
口を開けて。
Oh. Bleh. I did as instructed, using one hand to move my jaw. He peered into my mouth from different angles.
切れてるな。痛いだろう。
Ooh.
次、シャツを脱いで。
Once he pulled his hand away from my jaw, I hiked my shirt up over my head. My upper body was dotted with bruises. Taku looked at it and grimaced.
こりゃひどいな。ちょっと寝てくれ。
Man, it's rough at the club. I lay down on my back. He gently pressed against the dark purple bruise on my side.
痛いか？
Bro, he was kicked in.
Yeah.
No.
ここは。
No.
まあ。
Oh boy.
わかった。足も怪我してるなら見せてくれ。
Oh. Not the leggies. I slowly sat up, wriggled out of my pants, and dropped them to the floor.
足はそこまでひどくないか。
There was still some bruising on my thighs, but not as dark as my torso. After he gave my body a once-over, Taku reached out to grab the first aid kit, but stopped. What? For a moment, he seemed to rub the left side of his chest. This reminded me of the gunshot wound at his left clavicle. Oh. Oh my goodness. With a dry smile, he started my treatment. He applied a compress to the dark bruise on my side, then gently wiped up my facial injuries with a cotton square soaked in disinfectant. Indeed. Indeed. Not like he eats or drinks anyway. Yeah, exactly. I knew it. I was like... Taku's like, please. He rolled his eyes at me and he applied ointment to my face. The sadness in his voice gave me a strange sense of deja vu. I felt unusually peaceful. Exhaling, I tried to force it out of my system. If I had to guess, it was probably because Taku had taken care of me all these years. He always looked out for me, and he was certainly the only person who gave about me in this hellhole. To overwrite the nostalgia I felt inside, I purposely touched on the subject of the narcotics. Well, what? He hung his head, his brows tightly knitted, his expression pained. Yeah. Oh gosh, Taku. Homie, he's a debt. Like... Silently, he looked up at me, then he sucked in a long breath and said, More than just money. What? Give me the tea, Taku. Taku, this is it. Like, we're here now. Like, you can't just pretend. Just tell us, homie. Just tell us. Just tell us. He stared at his feet like he was debating whether to talk about it. Oh no. Oh no. No, that's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot.
だから働こうにも働けなくて、俺がバイトして生活費を稼いでたんだ。学生のバイトなんてたかが知れてる。母親はいつも金に困ってて、もともと心が強い方じゃなかったから、少しずつ病んでいって、最後は薬に手を出したんだ。
Exhaling, he paused to think for a moment before he continued.
俺は母親が苦しむ姿をずっと見てきて、いつか治してやるって思ったんだ。そうすれば依存から救う方法を見つけることができるんじゃないかってな。それで国立の医学部に入って医者を目指すことにした。私立はとんでもなく金がかかる。とはいえ国立も私立に比べれば安いってだけで難易度は変わらない。そもそも付け焼き場の勉強で本当に入れるかどうかもわからないまま、とにかく寝る間も惜しんでバイトと勉強漬けで毎日不安でたまらなかったよ。
Taku's just so sad. Like...
そんな時だ。あいつが声をかけてきたのは。
His expression darkened and he let out a hard breath.
トーノとは別に仲がいいわけじゃなかった。だから最初は警戒した。それに当時トーノは悪い連中とつるんでるって噂があったからな。結局あいつは根っからの悪だったわけだが、 あの時
They
は
never seemed that bad
実
at
際に
first.
話してみるとそんなに
They
悪い
seem
やつ
just
で
a
もない
tad.
と思っ
There's
ち
just
ま
a
ったん
little
だ。
bit of good in him. Just a little bit. Maybe he's not so bad. Yeah, they're
それ
always
どころ
bad.
か俺の話に賛同してくれてな。医者を目指すのは素晴らしい
Yeah,
志
He
だと。
sweet talked her real good, Taku.
ただ医者になるよりも研究者になったらどうかとまで言われてな。その場合は全力で支援するとも。母親の入院費もトーノが出すと言ってくれて。俺はその恩に報いるべく薬学部の薬科学科に進むことにした。研究者になるために。
学生なのにトーノはそんな大金を払えたのか。
He was a gangster. Taku slowly shook his head.
あいつの父親は不動産経営をしていて、昔から金持ちで有名だった。
Yeah, I was like, he's probably rich.
それでも同級生から金を借りることに抵抗がなかったわけじゃない。が、俺は薬学部へ入って研究に没頭した。そうしているうちに、やはり医者になりたいと思うようになったんだ。俺の手で母親や母親のように苦しんでる人を助けたいと悩んだ末、薬学部の修士課程を収めてから
Taku has nothing good. No wonder he like is super protective of Towa.
それまでのトーノの支援を思えば到底受け入れてもらえない話だろうとは思っていた。
Oh no.
金を返
You're
せ
an
と言われても
investment,
仕方がない。
Taku. You're a full investment of a gangster.
一か八かで話した。トー
Hmm.
ノはあっさりと快諾したよ。 医者を目指すならそれで構わないと言ってな。俺はひたすらトーノに感謝するしかなかった。その後、俺は薬学部の修士課程を終えてから医学部に入った。ようやく本当にやりたかったことができる。
Oh gosh, so sad.
さあ、これからだって時に、母親が病室から失踪したんだ。
No.
どこを探しても見つからなくて、結局病院から遠く離れた路地裏で発見された。
No, oh my goodness. He paused there to exhale deeply. I could tell from the look on his face that he didn't want to continue, but
発
nevertheless.
見された時、母親はもう死んでた。俺がちゃんと見てなかったせいだと、そう思った。俺はもしかしたら勉強に打ち込むふりをして母親から逃げてたんじゃないかと思ったんだ。
Man, these guys are so sad.
母親を見殺しにした自分が許せなかった。それから自暴自棄になってタバコや酒に溺れるようになって、せっかく医学部に入ったのに全てがどうでもよくなって、トーノとも疎遠になってな。
Ah, okay. I
生
see.
の根も尽き果ててそろそろ死のうかと思ってた時に
Oh boy.
偶然
Taku's in deep, man. He's like, oh, this is not good.
高里組として頼みたいことがあると言ってきた。あいつが高里組に入っていたことを知ったのはその時だ。
That's usually how it goes.
だが意外だとは思わなかった。昔から悪い噂が絶えなかった男だ。
Tono's not very pleasant, so.
関わらない方がいいとは思ったんだが、あいつには恩があったし、信頼していた。
I mean, he paid for a lot. That's a lot, bruh. He let out another heavy sigh and closed his eyes. His throat quavered like he was trying to choke down his feelings.
今ならわかるが、トーノは狡猾だ。
It's always part of the plan.
俺に初めて話しかけてきた時も、俺が医者を目指していることにあらかじめ目をつけて、 種をまいておいたんだろう。研究者を目指せと言って薬学部に入るよう勧めたのも、将来的に薬物に詳しい人間がいた方が便利だと考えたんだろうな。実際あいつは普通の医者が嫌がるようなことを頼んでくるようになった。もし依頼を断るなら今まで貸した金をすべて負債にすると言ってな。あいつは全部計算してたってことだ。
Tono's one of
話
those
しか
for
けてき
sure.
た時から何もかも。
クリニックの地下もそのためか。
He nodded darkly.
ああ、高里組から依頼があった時に使うためだ。
それでこれから先もずっとトーノの操り人形を続ける気なのか。
Yeah, I want to know the tea, Taku. He shot me an anguished look. His brow furrowed deeply.
それは
一生トーノの人形でいるつもりか。
He stared at the floor, his expression pained.
あの薬を完成させてしまったら、俺は母親の命を奪った薬の存在を肯定することになる。そうなってしまったら、俺は何のために医者になったのか。こんなことをするためじゃないんだ。なのに。
This poor man.
だったらやめればいい。やめちまえよ。
You go, Towa.
それは
I
無理
mean,
だ。
what will they do to Taku if he's just like, I don't want to do it anymore. I'll pay back all the debt. You know, like, what are they really gonna do? You know, besides stab him. You know that. You know. Anyway. You choked the words out.
俺はもう何も失いたくない。大切なものを守りたいんだ。
Oh, that's true. It's you know, Towa.
お前はどう
It's
したい？
interrogation time. Let's
俺
go.
を
Yeah, tell me what you truly desire, Taku. Too many T's. Play bad cup until it. Okay, here we go. It's time to push the doctor man. All right, let's go. Not target. Oh boy.
言えよ。
What are you so scared of losing? Well,
大切なんだ。
all of you. Everything, the clinic, the staff, the patients, every part of my life. I don't want it to disappear. Let's provoke.
ネガティブ。
I feel like being nice to Taku is not the move. And this is going to lead to that? Right now I'm more fulfilled than I've ever been. In spite of all of this, I'm happy.
俺にとっては
But I owe that happiness to a debt I incurred in my past. I don't think this is a good... Okay, let's try.
ポジティブ。そうだろ。
If you want to protect what you have, then don't you think you need to do something?
うん。
That's true. I mean, ain't wrong, ain't wrong. Oof. Is this the answer? Huh. That might make him good. You know what? Let's go. Let's just do it. Let's just do it because Taku, I don't know. Like he's so like, you're just a coward. Oh, that didn't do anything. Is this the answer you've chosen? Is this the answer you've chosen? Dang it.
No.
So what is it you actually want? Yeah, let's calmly, plainly, yeah, let's go plainly. Let's see if that gets us anywhere. Grow a pair already. Ooh, his glass is about to break. Can't see the big picture. You can't see the big picture. Oh, dang it. Okay. Oh, here we go. Yeah, we have to push him. Taku's like impossible. Think about it. Are you sure this is what you want? Towa. Ooh. Ugh, maybe I should stop. I lost interest and fell silent. Okay. So we really have to push. Okay, so I really have to push. It looks like it has to be like really negative. Okay. Let's try. Okay, let's give it a go. I think I'm just gonna have to be very pressed. I guess everything has to be kind of harsh in this situation.
Yeah.
What are you so scared of losing? Okay. Yeah, let's. We're just gonna have to go. We're just gonna have to go. And this is going to lead to that. Okay, I think we did that. Okay, let's just go negative. Like, I think I have to push the buttons here. So you're not going to fight. Man, Taku's a tough cookie, bro. No, let's just keep going. I'm just gonna push, but I'm gonna press the other answers. You're just a coward. The hourglass is gonna shatter if I'm too harsh. This is the answer you've chosen. Okay.
No.
So what is it you actually want? Okay. Let's do negative. I'm just gonna go negative. If you can't figure out the answer to that question, then none of this can change. Ooh, okay. Okay. Let's press, let's keep pressing. You can't see the big picture. Ooh, I think that's gonna... Ooh, I might be breaking the hourglass, but I don't know what else to say. Think about it, are you sure this is what you want? Towa. Okay. Oh, it's still... Okay. Do I not press? Okay. Hold on. Let's try again. He's a tough cookie, bruh. Okay. I wonder if I do all positive. Let me see if I can do all positive. Oh, let me stretch a second. All this interrogation got me going buck wild. Okay. Not target. Okay. Let's do
positive.
Can I? Okay. Sorry, I was pressing one. Right now, blah blah blah. Admonish. Let's try to admonish then. Want to protect. Okay, so let's lift. Let me just do one, and then I won't press that. Okay, and then I won't say anything because inform him plainly. Let's see. Okay. Wow. It's like, ooh, are you like having a hard time? Yeah, actually. Y'all gonna see me embarrass myself, yes. Because I don't want to spend another like 3 hours just going through the same thing. Okay, let's go. Okay. It says play bad cop. Okay. I have lowered the difficulty and it's embarrassing, so. Yeah. How embarrassing. Okay.
Negative.
Okay, it says I have to like I said, I have to provoke him, right? Okay.
Negative. Kangaero.
So you're not going to fight.
Yoku kike.
I just don't like it's not they really said, okay, we got you.
Nah.
Okay. I think it's
positive.
Okay, I think it's this one. Okay, let's try again. Okay.
Yoshi.
We're gonna try again. Think about what you want. The hourglass isn't even moving. There we go. Taku's worried about overprotective. Ooh, we have more. Okay, good. All this time. Yeah, did I get it? Oh, no. I was wrong. You've been watching over me all this time. Okay. It's gotta be more to it. Okay. What does he want? I'm actually quite curious about that. Debt. He does not want drugs. Studying. Nasty rumors. Nope, that's not it. Okay. What about my mother? Okay, well. Worried about... What is he worried about? I mean, debt, you know. Ugh, this isn't it either. Oh, pain. Taku wants... Oh, this is painful. Okay, well, there's one. Oh, goodness. Man. It's rough in the club. How is it going? Is he putting it off? Like, is that what's happening? He's putting off making it? Mm-hmm. Okay, well, there's one. What's the next one? Okay. This I can do. Are you still hesitating? What do you mean I don't know? You know. You absolutely know, Taku. You said you only became a doctor so you could help people like your mom, right? Press. Nope, we gotta press. Are you really gonna take orders from Toono? Man, he's tough, man. You've given up. Yeah, let's do it.
Taku.
He's a tough little cookie. So why not drop everything and run away? I can't.
いいのか?
Put your head in the sand and your mom died. You sure you want to let that happen again? It's true. It's true. Answer coldly. Yeah.
Positive.
Because he's like still very avoidant. There's still time. This one. There we go. It's easy to give up. It's the easy way out. Think about it. Yeah, press, press, press. Think about it. If you honestly can't decide, then go ahead and make the drug. Tell yourself it's Toono's fault and not yours. Oh man, Taku, you're killing me. Okay. Yeah, no, provoke him. He's not going. He's not budging. He forced you into it, so you're not to blame. Tell yourself it's all his fault. Come on. Yeah. Not like you're gonna spill the beans and tell people you were the one who made it, right? Yeah. Okay. This is good. You claim you're on the fence, but I don't see it that way. What's that supposed to mean? Means exactly what it means. You owe a debt to Toono. You owe a debt to Toono. That's why you're torn, right? Yes, I owe him, but... Yeah, make him admit it, yeah! Without him, you wouldn't be here right now, right? Yeah. Okay. Ooh. Yeah, we have to like... Because he doesn't want to like... It's interesting because it's like Taku is willing to take responsibility, but not for this for some reason. Like he's like, yeah, I'll make the drug because I'm indebted to him, but it's like he has like his moral compass is still there, even though he's done things that aren't very morally good. Which is so interesting, but it also, it's causing him to like create more damage because he's so indecisive, you know. So are you gonna repay him or run? You resigned yourself to this right from day one. You've already decided you can't change anything. No, okay. What's a better one? It's so hard because he's so difficult. But your actions, those matter. Come on. Oh, let's go. This one, right? Oh, dang it. Yeah. Taku wants... I don't know, man, like... There we go. Okay, I was like, it's got... How can it not be, you know? Okay, we made it. Ooh! Ooh, here we go. I want to know the truth. Tell me the truth. Give me the tea. Absolutely. 1000%. He can't even say it. Taku can't even say it when it's obvious. Oh my goodness, Taku. Taku. Just then, there was a knock at the door. Taku hopped off the bed and answered it. A man in a business suit walked in. Fujieda? Now, this fool. It was the same burly guy who beat who beat me up out in the women's room. Oh no. He smirked at me as I sat on the bed. Ew, gross. Nasty. Taku glared at the other man. I slowly eased myself onto my feet, then headed to the door. As I passed Taku, standing there in silence, our eyes met. We looked at each other for a long moment until he averted his gaze. Then I left the room without looking back. Oh, Taku. Taku, you're killing me. Yeah, whatever. Oh gosh, I hate this guy. At Toono's command, his lackey opened the door with a key card and led me inside. Toono was lounging on his leather sofa, sipping from a glass full of amber liquid. With a bow, the subordinate left the room. As I stood there blankly, Toono looked at me and chuckled. Ugh. Y'all gross in this club.
Oh
no, what are you doing? What are we gonna do here? He beckoned to me with a single finger. Big fan of condescending gestures, apparently. Regardless, I obeyed. He set his glass down on the coffee table, grabbed my arm, and yanked me toward him. Oh no. It knocked me off balance and I collapsed on top of him. His icy gaze was now mere inches from my face. He stared at me in silence for a long moment, then he sighed and shoved me away in annoyance. Oh boy. Give what a try? Gay sex? I sneered at him. With an exaggerated shrug, he rose to his feet and walked to the counter. Oh boy. For his instructions, I sat on the sofa and looked around the room. The furnishings were all matching black, and the lighting was dim, reminiscent of a host club. Toono grabbed a clean glass from the shelf, poured some whiskey, and walked back. Ugh. I'm so sick of Toono. If I never see him again for the rest of this game, that'll be a blessing. I took the glass, but didn't feel like drinking, so I just shifted it around in my hands. He returned to the sofa and picked up his own half-empty glass. Yeah, whatever. Of course. Exactly. Toono chuckled. Darn. He downed the rest of his whiskey, then fixed me with a probing look. We do what we gotta do here, Toono. Mm-hmm.
俺とお前は似てるとまでは言わないが、近いものを感じるな。
With a snort, he set his empty glass on the coffee table, then leaned back against the sofa.
村瀬が不妻者だってことは知ってるのか？
What's new?
本人から聞いた。
そうか。じゃあ、あいつが俺から逃げられないってことも知ってるんだな。
ああ。
Toono stared wistfully into the distance. His eyes narrowed.
村瀬はな、もともと金持ちのお坊ちゃんで、俺と同じ高校に通ってたんだ。だが両親が離婚して母親だけになって、 一気に貧乏になってな。
Mm.
ただ、あいつはすこぶる頭が良かった。成績も常にトップクラスで医者を目指してた。
Why are you talking to me? Like, why are you telling me information? Like, I don't
俺
care.
はあい
Like,
つと
can I
知
go
り合
back
う
to the
前
room?
からおそらく本当に医者になるだろうと踏んでた。だから話しかけて縁を作ったんだ。医者の知り合いってのは重要だからな。あいつが何か悩んでたらすぐに相談に乗ってやったりな。未来の先行投資ってやつ。
Ooh, yeah, see? I knew it.
薬の研究職を進めたら見事にそっちに進んだよ。結果として医者になったが、むしろ好都合だった。
He paused and looked at me with a meaningful grin.
あいつはともかく、お前からすればとんだとばっちりだよな。巻き込まれた挙句、こんなところまで連れてこられて。
I mean, that's always Towa's business, though. Like,
言いたいこと
everybody's
があるな
like,
らはっきり言えよ。
yeah, exactly. Come on. My reply was cold. His theatrical tone of voice pissed me off. Mood. He straightened his posture and shot me a look, but suggested he just thought of a fun idea. Gosh, not more fun ideas. Oh no, not a deal. A deal?
ああ、応じるならここでのお前の待遇を良くしてやる。
I mean, will you? Like, what does that mean? Exactly. Like, does it mean, like, I'll get you a better bed, I'll make them stop beating you up? Like, what does that really mean? Or does that mean, like, I'm gonna give you an extra pillow and then I'm still gonna beat you up? Like, hello?
解放されるわけじゃない
You
の
can't
か。
trust gangsters? Okay. Yeah, can he just leave, you know?
さすがにそれはできないそうだ。
Yeah. He shook his head.
条件を言え。
俺の愛人になれ。
No. Towa, you jump out of the... You just... No. 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 Give me a moment. Oh, gosh. Ew. 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 You know, if Sakaki had like a thing, I expected in these games, like, if it was Sakaki, like, honestly, I'd be much more fine with that. Because at least Sakaki cares for Towa. And again, like Taku, Sakaki has loyalty to Towa. Toono grinds my last nerve, bro. Like, ooh. Ooh. Blech. Anyway. Okay, let's continue before... I never want to see this dude ever again. After this chapter, he better be gone. This I was not expecting. I stared at him in silence. He was smiling thinly, but didn't seem to be joking.
本気で言ってるのか。
Yeah, are you serious, bro?
ああ、
Ooh, he reached out and grabbed me by the jaw. His eyes narrowed behind the lenses of his glasses.
お前は母親譲りの整った顔立ちをしてる。なのに顔も体もズタボロだ。
Yikes.
ひどく醜い。
Get me out. Get me out, bro.
そういうのはな、 見てる方に背徳的な興奮をもたらす場合もある。嫌悪と紙
Anyone
一
but
重
Tono.
のな。
Please.
大抵の人間は傷跡だらけのお前を見て目をそらすだろうが、中にはそうじゃない人間もいる。無意識にお前の傷跡を魅力だと感じるやつもいるってことだ。さらに言えば、綺麗なものを汚したい欲望を隠し持ってるやつも案外多い。
Not you.
そういう連中がお前を見たら欲望をかきたてられるはずだ。すでに傷跡まみれなんだから、もっとひどく扱ってもいいだろうとな。
Gosh, are they... No.
お前のそのアンバランスな体は刺激心をそそるんだよ。
His fingers traveled from my chin to my cheek, then followed the scar running across the bridge of my nose.
俺はお前が嫌いだ。醜いからな。だが手元には置いておきたくなる。不思議なこと。
Then why? If you think he's what? Why are we here? Why? I know why, but why? Why am I in this room, in this situation? Let Towa leave. You know, nasty. He spoke matter-of-factly with a smile. I don't know what you didn't even give me, like, you know, in exchange, you know. As we held eye contact, I made a show of contemplation, but deep down I had already decided. He squinted at me dubiously.
ずいぶんあっさりと決めたな。
Can't. Oh, mercy.
もっと悩んだ方が良かったか。
Yeah, exactly. Like, what do you want me to do?
村瀬はいいのか？
What about him? He can't make up his mind. He doesn't even know. Like, he can't even admit that, like, he cares for Towa. Like, not even romantically. He won't even say that he's like, I care about Towa. You know? Like, please.
タク、何が？
お前を守ろうと必死になってるだろう。
Okay, but I'm losing my mind. I'm losing my mind.
関係ない。
I mean, it's true. Like, if he sleeps with Tono, like, that doesn't really relate to, like, Towa's safety, because that doesn't particularly relate to safety, because he could still be safe but sleep with Tono, you know? One of those things.
そうか。このことを知ったら苦しむぞ。
But it's not. I mean, okay. Let me give me a moment. Let me level with y'all. So we side with Taku to an extent because he has, like, he's one of the characters in this game with, like, a morality that mirrors us as the viewer. Most of us playing this have a morality of, like, oh, Taku is a good person, like, he wants to help people, etc., like, you know, blah 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 blah, whatever. So that also includes, like, suppressing his desires for Towa, whatever those desires may be. I don't know what those desires exactly are, but because he can't even say anything. Like, he can't decide, he can't choose, and that's what makes this difficult, because, you know, Towa can choose for himself, you know, and if Towa wants to be buck wild, he can be buck wild, whether Taku likes it or not. But yeah, Honestly, they're not dating. They're not together. Taku has not expressed how he feels about Towa, so Towa doesn't need to care about that. You know, if Taku wants to continue being wishy-washy about everything, then Towa can continue to be himself and be sure of everything. I guess that makes them equal, not equal, that makes them a complementary pair because they are kind of opposite, you know, in that way. So, anyway, let's continue.
あいつを苦しめるために俺を連れてきたんじゃないのか。
He ain't wrong.
確かに。それなら本当に決まりだ。まるで汚い野良猫でも拾った。
Can you shut your mouth once? Oh, I hate this dude. He let out a throaty chuckle, grabbed his empty glass, and stood up. Then he walked to the counter. At the counter, he poured himself another glass of whiskey and downed it. Then he fixed me with a defiant look.
交渉成立だ。
Oh boy. Oh, I hate it here. Slow damage. Oh, no. The next day, now that I was Tono's lover, I was permitted some freedoms. Unsurprisingly, I still wasn't allowed to have my cell phone, but he stopped posting a guard outside my room and I was allowed to walk around. But at the same time, I was also given new restrictions. I had to visit Tono's room every night and go to him whenever he called for me. But if he asked me to... I was prepared to do it. I was prepared to do it. It wouldn't be fun, but then again, most jobs weren't. More importantly, I needed to come up with an escape plan now that I wasn't so restricted. And Taku was coming with me. Though I still wasn't sure what he was planning to do, or more accurately, whether he had made his choice. How would he react if he found out I was Tono's lover? Maybe he would be pissed, or maybe he would just roll his eyes. Where was he anyway? I left my room in search of him. Tono said he had arranged for Taku to have a separate workspace. I figured Taku was probably there, so I headed off down the hall. Then I saw a man in a suit walking toward me. At first I thought it was one of Tono's goons, but he had a distinctly different air about him. Is it Fujieda? He spotted me and came to a stop. It's him, y'all. It's Fujieda. It was Fujieda, the lawyer. Like last time, he was wearing a classy suit, carrying a coat in one hand and a briefcase in the other. He looked at me in mild surprise. It was not a tag-along. He was abducted. First of all. I shrugged silently. Yeah, what are we doing here? What are we doing here, y'all? Sorry. Oh lordy, Fujieda frowned. Yes. What? Fujieda, you're making this difficult for me. He let out an exaggerated sigh, then reached up and adjusted his glasses with his middle finger. Proclivities? It hit different, Fujieda, okay? Yeah, you know where he at. Fujieda shot me an icy look. I can't wait to do this dude's chapter. He's gonna be so difficult. Yeah, see. I hate to see you go, but I love to watch you leave. You know what I'm saying? Isn't it sad that I find solace in Fujieda, the lawyer who threatened Taku, basically? Because this chapter is so miserable right now. I started walking like I was done with him.
Mate.
Yes? His voice was lower now. I stopped. Bro, we're just here. With that warning, he strode off. I looked over my shoulder and watched him go. I hate to see you go, but I love to watch you leave. I hate it here. I didn't like him. The mere sight of his face was enough to ruin my day. You'll be saying something different later. Shaking him from my mind, I faced forward and started walking. But no amount of walking helped me find Taku. Eventually I got so desperate I considered pounding on every door in the hall. But just then I heard a door fly open behind me and a man ran out. Oh, yep, here we are. Screeching, he charged straight at me. Oh gosh, it's always like this. On reflex I tried to dodge, but then I felt an impact against my right arm. I looked over and realized he had stabbed a ballpoint pen. Can Towa catch a break? Like he be Release Towa. Like, please. He had stabbed a ballpoint pen deep into my skin. Oh boy. He was clearly acting weird, drooling from the mouth and panting like a wild animal. Okay. Calm down. He roared and charged again. I ran in the opposite direction and turned the corner. It was a dead end. Oh gosh. Man closed in, both hands outstretched. I heard a familiar voice, and then Taku rounded the corner. He grabbed the man from behind, trying to pin his arms up. Y'all need to be faster. The man struggled, trying to shake Taku off. While Taku had him distracted, I moved in close and delivered a headbutt to his jaw. Knocked backwards, he let out a muffled grunt, then went limp, passed out apparently. He was stabbed with a pen. I mean, what do you mean? Like, what are you expecting? One look at my new injury and the blood drained from Taku's face. That is true. He's been stabbed by a lot of things, just not a pen. I wasn't really that alarmed. In fact, for a moment, I marveled at it like an art piece. Then I grabbed the pen and yanked it out, causing fresh blood to spill out of it. Yeah, obviously. Taku shot me a look of annoyance and disapproval. Lord have mercy. He slung the unconscious man's arm around his shoulders and heaved him up. At least now I had found Taku. He headed back to the room the other man had run out of, and I followed after him. Towa can't catch a break. As soon as I stepped foot inside, it hit me. This was his workroom. At the very least, it was nothing like the women's room nor my room. It was furnished with a table littered with test tubes and beakers, like the kind you'd use in a science experiment. Taku deposited the other man on the floor, then walked to the table. There, he grabbed a vial of liquid and an injection needle from a tray. He pulled out a pair of latex gloves, filled the needle with the fluid, and injected it into the man's right arm. Oh boy. It's rough in the club, huh? I sat down where he indicated. He came over with a first aid kit, took my arm, and rolled up my sleeve. He was stabbed by a ballpoint pen. That's a lot of force. He grimaced at the bleeding wound and started treatment. Admittedly, it was throbbing, but nothing I couldn't handle. Probably. I looked at the man on the floor as I spoke. Taku's expression twisted in misery. Oh boy.
俺は被験者の経過や症状を観察して成分の合成に関する提案をまとめてるんだ。試薬の投与自体は別の部屋で他の誰かがやってる。
その被験者っていうのはどこか。
Yeah, where do you get this, homie?
負債者だろうな。
True.
高里組に借金したやつはみんな奴隷扱いなのか。
I heard that pointed tone.
高里組は金のためなら非人道的なことも平気でやる。
He was pointing his tone, Taku.
お前も無関係じゃないよ。
Exactly. You tell him, baby. Taku stopped and looked up at me with anguish in his eyes. Taku, please. Right. He averted his eyes. I was purposely trying to provoke him, of course. Yeah, provoke him, please. He's killing me, Towa. He's killing me. I wanted to gauge his reaction, and sure enough, I got what I expected. How long was he planning to make a martyr of himself?
遠野から俺のこと聞いたか?
He looked up at me as he resumed the first aid process.
愛人になれってさ。
I love Towa. You know, Towa is the protagonist I want like every BL protagonist to be like. He doesn't hide anything unless it's like it's going to cause like someone to go to jail kind of thing. Like, you know, he's just like, he tells everybody else every pertinent information and he's just like, I don't care. He's like, ooh, come on. Okay, if this doesn't get Taku to react, I'm done. I'm done with Taku. He froze, horrified.
それでお前は
Yes, he said.
断るメリットがない。
It's true. What's the downside? His eyes widened in disbelief.
脅されたのか?
Taku. He's putting me through it. I swear it. I'm trying so hard with Taku right now. He's putting me through it, man. It's like I want to feel bad for you, but you're killing me. It's killing me, man.
いや。
じゃあどうして?
Then what do you think, fool?
待遇が良くなるって話だったからな。
Yeah.
だからって
So what if what? What if they smash? What if they smash Taku? What you
俺
gonna
は
do?
巻き込まれただけだ。
That's true, he's a victim, remember? I cut in, staring coldly into his eyes. According to Toono, Taku was using me as a surrogate for my mother. That is true. That's what Toono said. So how would he feel now that he knew I was Tono's lover? Would he still pretend he was a robot with no will of his own? I guess. He stared at the floor and spoke in a wavery, panicked voice.
それは形だけってことじゃないのか? どうのにそういう趣味はなかったはずだ.
I can't. Taku, I need you to like let loose, like Lucy LaDuca style. I need you to like, I need more here. You're killing me. If I were Towa, I would leave you here. I'm so frustrated with you right now. I'm so frustrated. Can you say like no? Can you tell him no? That blah blah blah, anything, Taku. Any. Let's continue. I can't. This chapter is torturous.
俺の女装を見て考えが変わったらしい。
お前は本当にそれでいいのか?
Okay.
遠野にそういう関係を強要されるかもしれ
Get
な
me
いんだ。
out. Get me. Duh. What do you think a lover is? You think Yakuza are like be my lover, I'm just gonna give you like candy every day. No! Get out of your mind, Taku. He's killing me. He's killing me. He's killing me, man. Can't with this man. Like, please. Like, please. I'm begging, crying, screaming, like anything, bro. Like, you're allowed to say, like, I don't like that. Like, you're, come on! You are killing me. Okay. Okay. Let's continue. This actually made me laugh in spite of myself.
俺が今までどれだけ男に抱かれてきたと思ってるんだよ。一人増えたところで今更だろ。
He's right. Towa is right. You know, Towa probably just like, hey, you know, honestly, why not? I respect that. I respect that. I respect that because, you know, Towa doesn't beat around the bush. He's not pretending like, you know, oh, you know, I just, you know, blah blah. No, he's just like, duh. Like, he's just like, yeah. It's what it do. It's what it be. Like, oh boy, I can't. Let's continue. You acting all shocked for Taku. I swear, I don't know what to do with this man. Just don't know. I don't know. Taku's making me more and more frustrated as this time goes on, you know? Anyway. Ooh! Here we go! It's Roland swayed, threatening to engulf me. Meanwhile, he swelled with fury, and his right hand balled into a tight fist. At that moment, I was sure he was going to deck me, but... Oh? Gritting his teeth, he turned away. With nowhere to vent his anger, his fist shook until finally it unclenched. We're getting somewhere. We're getting somewhere, kids. And he jumped up and stormed off to the door. Without so much as a final glance, he walked down and shut the door behind him. Good, good. This is good. This is progress. This is progress. I looked down at my bandaged arm. Evidently, Taku was even more stubborn than I thought. But at the same time, he was clearly agitated. Hatred of the drugs that killed his mother, hatred of himself for letting her die, feelings of obligation shackling him to Toono. He was probably asking himself what's the right thing to do. In his current state, he honestly couldn't tell. Ultimately, however, the decision was his to make. Subconsciously, I found myself digging into my fresh wound with my fingers. Not like this again. After I left Taku's workspace, I returned to my assigned room. I was feeling strangely exhausted, so I flopped down on the bed and let out a sigh. I raised my bandaged right arm to eye level. A small red stain had formed in the center. Apparently, I was still bleeding. The wound kept aching dully, but I didn't let it bother me. I lowered my arm and stared blankly up at the flawless ceiling. A few moments later, there was a knock at the door. Is it time? Then I heard the electronic whir of the door being unlocked, and it opened. In walked one of Toono's underlings. Who's this? This dude's... Oh, because the other one was replaced, yeah, because because he let Towa seduce him and then go get cigarettes. Oh. I love this game. Oh boy. I slid off the bed and accompanied him out of the room. As we walked down the dimly lit hall, I realized we were heading in the opposite direction of Toono's room. The opposite direction. I could see a spacious area up ahead, as well as what looked like a luxury restaurant. Are they having dinner? Is that what's happening? The lackey walked in, so I followed suit. Ahead, I could see a spiral staircase. At the bottom was a bar. The inside turned out to be a lot larger than the entrance suggested, with counter seats and tables. Almost all of the clientele were either men in suits or tired-looking women, Toono's associates. This was probably a private bar then. My escort walked to a table in the back and stopped short. Oh gosh, I gotta look at you again. The lackey bowed, turned on his heel, and left. Toono was resting his full weight against the sofa seat, glass in hand. He eyed me as he downed the amber liquid. Sure. He gestured with his chin to the spot beside him. Wordlessly, I walked up and sat down next to him. With his command, he thrust his empty glass at me. Belatedly, I remembered that I was his lover or whatever. I set the glass on the table, poured him some whiskey, then handed it back to him. Silently, he accepted the glass and took a small sip. Ooh. Smoke! Towa's two favorite things, smoking and drinking. He took another sip. Truth be told, it sounded like heaven, but I didn't budge. I hated taking orders from Toono. You need to like not. Honestly. Honestly. It should knock you out too.
こっちの方がいいって物好きもたまにいるけど。
You tell him. You tell him, baby.
だろうな。お前の体の傷跡を見ればわかる。あいにく、俺にそんな趣味はない。
I can tell. Tell. He shook his head softly.
しかし、お前が俺の愛人になったと知ったら。
Oh, I can. Oh, absolutely.
榊が。
He would? Toono let out a throaty chuckle as I stared at him dubiously. Sakaki was basically guaranteed the position of gang leader. What would it matter to him who... So I also need you to wake up. Like, I need you to wake up. The nuance, honey, the nuance. Then Toono sneered like he had read my mind. I don't think
お前、勘違い
I
してるぞ。
understand.
榊
Ah,
は
yes, yes.
家族に対する情が人一倍深いんだ。
Okay. I was
そ
just
れこ
like,
そ執念と言ってい
need to
い
wake
ほ
up.
どな。まあ、村瀬だけじゃなく、榊に対しても、お前を使うのは有効ってこと
I
だ。
hate it here. He shifted his gaze to the window. Beyond the polished glass lay a view of Shinkomi's nightscape.
こうしてみると、街もただの光るおもちゃみたいだよ
He muttered to
な。
himself.
たまに、俺はこんなちっぽけな街で何をやってるんだと思う時がある。高里組の中で偉くなって、それが俺にとって何
That's
に
my
なる
question.
んだってな。
Why are you here, Toono?
だが、もうずっとこういう生き方しかしてこなかったからな。今さら後には引けない。
I suppose.
それになぜかこの吐きだめみたいな街を欲しがる人間が後を絶たない。
Okay, okay.
不思議だよな。昔は確かに信仰の娯楽都市ってのが売りだったが、今は違う。
Oh, there's stuff like that
あちこ
occurs.
ちボロボロだ。
Stuff like that happens, Toono. He took a sip of his drink and slowly swallowed.
本土の方が安全で住みやすいのに、それでも人が集まってくるってことは、
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, things happen.
結局人間ってのは感情を波立たせるのが好きなんだろうな。
Excuse me. We just want to feel some
怒
mood.
ったり
Anger,
喜
joy,
んだ
sorrow.
り泣いたり何でもいいから刺激を求める。好戦的で貪欲な生き物なんだよ、人間ってのは。
You know, he isn't wrong.
今も幽霊が出るだのなんだのおかしな噂が出回ってるだろう。
Ghosts.
高里組に恨みを抱いた男の魂がさまよってるってやつだ。
Possible.
そういうくだらない話が流行るのも人が刺激を欲しがるからだ。まあ
Demo. Demo. His lips curled in a self-depreciating
結
grin.
局俺もその一人ってことなんだが。とは
I mean, he didn't say like he's different or something. Towa is like the most like accepting, you know, of his situation. He's just like, bro, this is what it is.
お前の存在そのものがこの街を表してる。
Yeah, can you stop talking now? He downed the rest of his drink and looked back at me.
昔のことはほとんど覚えてないんだろ。
I thought we established this. Gosh, we gotta keep going through it with Tono. Like, ugh.
榊と村瀬はお前がガキだった頃から知ってるのに過去については何も話さない。そうだな。
あ
I nodded cautiously, trying to gauge his angle.
あの二人はあえて話さないんだよ。それがお前への精一杯の優しさなんだ。わかるか？
Boy.
どういうことだ
Oh no.
そのまんまの意味さ。お前は何も知らず、だらだらと無駄に生きてる。そう考えると、
Why?
榊と村瀬は不憫だな。
Why would he though? Like, he doesn't know. You know? He doesn't know.
お前を思ってのことなのに、感謝もされずにな。
Okay, but like, okay. It's interesting that this is coming from Tono. Because Tono doesn't care. Like, he honestly just doesn't. He's saying this to try and, like, get a rise out of Towa. Because Towa doesn't show feelings very well. So... And right now, Tono is treating Towa like a new toy. You know, like he's like, "Ooh, I got something new to like mess with, right?" It's like, yeah, but Sakaki and Taku can care about Towa a lot. But if they don't ever express or explain why to Towa, who has very severe amnesia and has a very like, he obviously has pretty high trauma, which is probably why they're not talking about the time he can't remember. Like, it's not Towa's job to be like, yeah, you know, I noticed Taku and Sakaki are like always protective of me and like, guess I'll just, you know, kiss their toes all the time or whatever. Like, I mean, what is he supposed to do? You know, like Towa has no inkling of it. You know, he's just like, I don't remember anything. So I can only like make do with what I got. You know, like Towa's just doing what he can. He's just trying to live. You know, it's like, it's not his responsibility to like make Sakaki and Taku feel like they're being good parental / romantic / guardian figures. Like, it's not his job though, you know. So anyway, that's my tangent because that that book wowed me. Why would Sakaki and Taku knowingly keep my past a secret from me? Is there something they didn't want me to know?
あんただって知ってるんだろ俺の過去
Is Tono gonna tell us? Is this gonna be the only good thing he does for me? Tono shook his head, smiling.
俺から話すつもりはない。せっかくの二人の優しさを踏みにじることにな
Kind
るからな。
gesture, please. And that was the last he spoke on the subject. It led me to a door, then refused to open it. Conflicted feelings swirled in my chest. I'd just have to ask Sakaki or Taku sometime. But first, I needed to figure out how to get out of here. Swallowing my frustration, I stared silently out the window to the sparkling city that lay beyond. Wordlessly, Toono and I sat there as he continued to drink. Then he rose to his feet, told me I could stay as long as I liked, and left. After he was gone, I sat there at the table in silence. I'd promised myself I wouldn't let Toono ply me with his smokes and booze. The smell of it was slowly inhibiting my better judgment. That, and I was relieved that Toono was gone. I rose from the sofa seat and walked to the counter. Right as I was about to place an order with the bartender, I noticed a woman sitting there. One look at her petite build and bob cut, and I realized she was the same woman who lent me my phone. Bestie! I walked over and sat down next to her.
Domo.
My only bestie. Startled, she looked at me. As soon as she laid eyes on me, she winced. Yeah, every day, baby.
男前になっただろ。
やめてください。大丈夫なんですか?
No, but when is he ever, okay?
まあ、酒が飲める程度には。
そうですか。
Exhaling, she picked up her cocktail glass filled with translucent blue-green liquid.
それ何?
エメラルドミストです。
That sounds tasty.
それじゃ同じもの。
Yeah. Once I placed my order with the bartender, the woman looked at me with a perplexed smile.
同じもの?
酒なら何でもいいんでね。
まあ、わかります。私もそんな感じです。
Does this NPC have a name? Like, she chuckled to herself as she looked at her glass. From the side, I could see the faintest shadow in her expression. Suddenly, I felt the urge to light a cigarette. Probably all the smoke in here. But more importantly, I wanted to keep talking.
あんたも不妻者なのか?
Oh yeah. The tea. Towa's like, I'm gonna get the tea. You know, I'm stuck in here, bruh. She shot me a sidelong glance.
あの部屋にいる人はみんなそうです。
Yes. あの部屋で全員生活してるなんてわけはない。
Oh, I bet they do.
それはさすがに。
Oh, okay, good. I was gonna be like, I won't be
普段は
surprised.
それぞれ割り当てられた部屋にいます。
もともと水商売をやってたってわけじゃないんだろ。
全然。できれば客がつかないようにって毎日祈ってます。それじゃあ借金なんていつまで経っても返せないんですけどね。
It's the truth. She looked at me hesitantly, her eyes full of sorrow.
あなたは男と寝たりとかそういうのは嫌じゃないんですか?
No. No.
別に。
そう。
ただ今回は違う。
Yes, this time's an exception.
早いところここから出ようと思ってる。
She looked at me intently. Her gaze was almost probing.
Oi! Damn
What is happening? What is this dude again? Out of nowhere, a roar of rage echoed through the restaurant. Oh my, can you chill? Like, calm down. I turned to see the meathead storming over to me. I let out an annoyed sigh. Apparently this dude really had it out for me. The woman froze like a deer in
話し
headlights.
てただけだよ。
He is allowed.
俺がどこで誰と話そうと関係ないだろ。
He is allowed to walk around, sir. Can this dude get kicked out? Please. He grabbed me by the collar and punched me in the face. I toppled to the floor along with the chair I was sitting on, and an outcry broke out around us. My cheek burned and stung, and I could taste copper on my tongue. Cut my mouth again. I got to my feet, crouched down low, and charged at him. He tried to grab me, but I dodged backwards, swinging my leg up to kick him in the gut. I'm so sick of this dude. He staggered backwards and reached into his coat pocket. No! With a scream, he whipped out a knife. Yeah, it's always the knife. Then he swung it down at me. Instantly, I raised my right hand. A searing pain flared up in my palm. On reflex, I had grabbed the blade of the knife with my bare hand. Blood trickled between my fingers. You're the one with a knife! Can this dude get thrown out, please? I'm so sick of this dude. I'm sick of this dude. The outcry swelled, then the man froze like he was frightened of me. I let go of the knife and looked down at my palm, where a wound had formed in the dead center. Regardless, I balled my fist and swung it squarely into the guy's face. Clutching his nose, he reeled backwards. He looked so pathetic it made me laugh. My fist tingled from the impact. I unclenched it and gave it a little shake, sending drops of blood flying everywhere. The woman rushed over to me, her face ghostly pale. With shaking hands, she attempted to look at my stab wound. Yeah, let's call Taku again. This is really just an excuse to call Taku like every 2 seconds. As she panicked, I held up my other hand to stop her, then walked off without another word. Bro, you better do it. I ignored the meathead's fetid whining and headed for the spiral staircase. As I walked, I kicked the bloody knife across the floor, then jogged up the stairs. I still don't know the bestie's name, you know. My destination, Taku's workroom, where I hoped to get some first aid for the cut on my hand. But as I was walking down the hall, I was flagged down by a lackey I didn't recognize. He told me Toono was calling for me. Apparently word had traveled about the bar fight, so I agreed to follow him to Toono's room. As soon as I walked in, Toono strode over to me and punched me in the face. What did he do? What did he do? He jerked his chin in the direction of the door. With a bow, my escort exited the room. Oh, with a bow, sorry. Toono grabbed me by the collar, yanked me close, and glared at me point blank. Behind his glasses, I could see fury in his eyes. He didn't do anything! I stared back at him silently. Nothing he said affected me in the slightest. He didn't do anything! You don't know Towa very well, do you? It's true. Oh no. Oh no, you don't know him very well. His lips twisted bitterly and he punched me again. As I staggered from the impact, he kicked me in the gut. It knocked the wind out of me and I fell to the floor. He stomped on my chest with the hard heel of his shoe. He stared down at me coldly. He was good. Can't stand these things. I don't bleed. I was getting it fixed. Gosh, mercy. Don't act up. It was your homie. He lifted his foot off my chest and brought it down hard on my bleeding right hand. Ow! It hurt so bad I thought he broke it. I couldn't help but scream. With a twisted sneer, he ground his heel into the flesh of my hand. Yeah. He scoffed sadistically. Gritting my teeth, I dug the fingers of my other hand into the rug as I writhed in agony. But deep down, part of me was enjoying this too. The impulse provoked by pain was not unlike arousal. All rationality went out the window as pain seeped into my brain. No. He's gonna be like, no. He raised his foot off my hand and kicked me in the jaw. Well, if this keeps up, Toono will not sleep with Towa, so... His tone was so casual you'd think he was discussing the weather.
お前に聞きたいことがあるんだが。
He stopped kicking me and crouched down to peer at my face.
榊のところの五十嵐って知ってる？あいつがどうも妙な動きをしてるようなんだが、行方がわからない。
You naughty Garashi!
どこに行ったか知らないか？
知るわけないだろ。
Yeah, how is Towa gonna
だ
know?
よな。
He straightened up like he never expected an answer out of me in the first
それ
place.
じゃあお仕置き再開だ。
Naughty
腕
Garashi.
の一本くらいは言っとくか？
Oh god. His tone was nonchalant as he grabbed my left arm, yanked it away from the rug, and twisted it around. Instantly, I knew what he was planning to do. Still, I had no intention of fighting back. My body was overwhelmed with pain, but my mind was fuzzy and detached. I couldn't detect a single shred of hesitation from him.
せーの。
With my arm twisted up, he stomped down hard on my elbow. What is happening? Man. After he destroyed my elbow joint, I felt like I was dreaming, even while I was still conscious. I could definitely feel the pain, and I was sweating all over, but my vision and hearing were fuzzy, like I was half asleep. Maybe the pain had triggered some kind of defense mechanism, numbing my senses. My sense of time was warped too. Toono was nowhere to be seen. He must have left at some point. Slowly, I attempted to get up. I couldn't use my right arm at all, so I tried to move my left, but my body was too heavy, and I ached all over. Exhaling, I slumped to the floor in defeat. Just then, the door flew open. Is it Taku?
To!
Blah 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 blah. Okay, give me a moment. Gosh, it hasn't even been this long. You know, this part isn't even that long yet. I'm going through it, bruh. I don't know what to do about these fools, you know. Like, okay. Give me a moment to breathe. The sound of Taku's voice made me want to laugh. Every time I got hurt, he always showed up to tend my wounds. Yeah, that's true. How many times had we gone through this exact same scenario? It was such a minor thing, and yet it tickled me. He was always the one to patch me up. Once again, that fluffy feeling of nostalgia rose up in me.
大丈夫じゃない。
He is like not alright. He walked up and knelt beside me, grimacing. Suppressing a giggle, I looked up at him.
トーノは
Yeah, where he at?
俺を呼びに来て、そのままどこかへ行ったよ。起き上がれるか？
Supporting my back and shoulders, he slowly eased me up, but even that slight motion radiated to my right arm, and I winced.
痛むか？手もひどいな。
He like tried to break his arm, like. He lowered me back down, then rose to his feet and moved deeper into the room. Moments later, he returned carrying a bath towel and pressed it to my bloody hand.
すぐに手当てしてやる。
Yeah, I bet you will. I bet you will. And I don't mean that in the sexy way. It's just... This chapter's so torturous. It's like so... I'm like, man. Once again, he attempted to hoist me up.
俺の体につかまれ。遠慮なく寄りかかっていいから。
でもお前怪我
I couldn't help but think about his chest wound. I was pretty sure it hadn't healed yet.
俺のことはいい。気にするな。
Yeah. His voice was firm and unwavering, so I did as he instructed. Oh, poor thing. The mere act of breathing was enough to cause pain. I could feel a lump in my throat. With Taku's help, I slowly took my first steps. Only pangs. As soon as he found out my right arm was broken, Taku rushed out of the room. When he came back, he was carrying a bunch of supplies. He sat me on the bed and got to work. He put a cast on my arm, then bandaged my palm too. After he was done, he gave me some pills and said they were painkillers. For a moment, I hesitated to take them, but his gaze was so intense I couldn't say no. My right arm was still burning dully. Taku quickly cleared away all his tools, then stood next to the bed and gazed solemnly at me. What's new? What's new? Exactly, story of my life. He fell silent, his brows knitted tightly. His words were dripping with self-loathing. Then he closed his eyes. He's not gonna let him go. Yeah, what you gonna do? This isn't about Towa. You know, at the end, you know, this is more about Taku. Because Towa, in the end, is just collateral damage. You know? He swallowed bitterly and stared down at his feet. Ooh. Ooh. I stared at him silently, trying to parse what he meant. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. Oh boy. I don't know. Yeah, I'm like, I don't know what the... I guess, like, what is the gain in this situation? You know what I mean? What's the gain? Because it doesn't seem like there's really like a profit from this, right? It's like, are we just making, like, is it for, I guess, unless it's for like trafficking, you know, right? You know, like I don't know. But anyway, because if they become like drug addicts to this particular drug, it's like they can't even buy more. You know, like, you know what I mean? It's like they're just gonna be like out there like foaming at the mouth. You know, but anyway. Oh no. Really complete. Ugh, here we go. He let out a heavy breath. Yeah, because they just keep beating up Towa. I'm like, what did he do? He didn't do anything. He smiled at me sadly, then set a blister pack of pills on the bedside table. How are we gonna get out of here? Like, it ain't looking hot in the club, you know? He scribbled a number on the memo pad on the side table, probably the room number for his workspace. Then he straightened up and walked out. As the door quietly shut, I stared at the floor. The painkillers hadn't kicked in yet. My arm burned like it was on fire. But the pain didn't matter right now. If Toono found out Taku helped me escape and trashed his research, he was dead meat. Surely he knew this, and yet he sounded like he was prepared to die. I laid myself down on the bed. The motion made my arm hurt, but I ignored it. I could only think of one way to get us both out of here alive. We needed the rest of the world to find out about this drug before Toono had the chance to show it off at his stupid party. To that end, we needed help from someone on the outside. I could only hope that Ray would come through. The more I thought about it, the heavier my eyelids grew until at last they lowered completely. Oh, so that's the solution. Okay. Slow damage. Man, the commercial breaks are getting longer and longer because it's all juicy. After all my sustained injuries, my body finally hit its physical limits, and at some point, I drifted off to sleep. It came so suddenly, I basically passed out, and when I awoke, I still felt terrible. I tried to move, but didn't have the strength. My head ached like someone was shaking my skull over and over. Using my left arm, I managed to get myself in a sitting position, but was immediately met with overpowering lethargy. Right as I finally sat up, however, the room phone began to ring. For a while I ignored it, but it kept ringing and ringing. I figured it might be Toono, so I slowly reached out and picked up the handset.
Hi.
Mosh mosh.
もしもし。
Eiji!
トワさんですよね。
Is that Eiji?
エイジ。
はい、エイジです。
This was so unexpected, it shook me awake. Shook me awake! A second later, the word tapped came to
こ
mind.
の電話は。
ああ、盗聴ですか？遠野さんのところの専用回線を拝借してるんで少しならバレません。
Ooh.
専用回線。
It's private line.
はい。遠野さんも盗聴は警戒してますから。極秘の話をしたい。まあ、僕はそれを知ってるというか見つけたんで、今使わせてもらって
As
るん
of
で
a
すけ
few
ど。
minutes ago.
ただ電話の記録は残るので、何度も使えば当然バレます。
Remind me to never get on this dude's bad
俺
side.
がこの部屋にいるってなんでわかった？
Easy.
トワさんについているウェブタグの位置をたどったんですよ。
Wait, he does have a web.
ウェブタグ？
はい、ウェブタグです。
He didn't know, he didn't know.
つけた覚えがない。
He didn't know.
でしょうね。
So it seems.
どういうことだ？
Yeah, where?
さあ、
Beats me.
とりあえず、
Oh
トワさ
boy.
んから発信。
I was utterly at a loss. As I sat there in silence, Eiji
ウ
continued.
ェブタグ自体は普通にそこらの店で売ってます。 けど、監視塔経由で位置を追跡するのは高里組で作ってる独自のアプリ以外は禁止されてるんです。主に負債者
I
用なんで。
wonder. Yeah, interesting, interesting. So it isn't just for people who have debt.
僕もウェブタグの管理とかちょいちょいしてるんですけど、たまに不正なアプリが動いてたり、変なことをするやつもいるわけです。
Is this important? Like, aren't we supposed to talk about
怪
something
しい
else
ウェ
right
ブタグ
now?
の追跡情報が入ったんで、ちょっと調べてみたんですよ。そしたら、村瀬先生の情報が出てきたんですね。
タクが。
はい。それでそのウェブタグの固有 ID を調べて履歴を見てみたら、主にトワさんの行動範囲になってたんで、もしやと思って今いる位置を割り出してみたんです。
Fascinating. Yeah, why would he have one?
まあ、普通に考えたら、トワさんが知らない間に誰かがウェブタグを埋め込んだんでしょうね。
A lot?
心当たりあります？手術とか。
A lot. A lot's happened, you know. Surgeries. When Asakura cut my back open, it was Taku who sewed me up. Could he have snuck it into me then? Girl. That was the missing piece of the puzzle. All at once, it felt like everything clicked. There were so many times when he had no way of knowing where I was, yet seemed to find me anyway. At the time, I'd figured it was good timing or a lucky coincidence, but it wasn't, was it?
心当たりありました？
ああ。でも、何のために？
Yeah, why? What?
さあ、トワさんがフラッといなくなるから、どこに行っても分かるようにしたかったんじゃないですか。
Towa does get buck wild, you know.
それにしても、先生もかなり無茶なことしますよね。
Same.
先生は負債者にウェブタグを埋め込む仕事を高里組から任されてるので、テスト用に専用アプリの使用も許可されてるんです。
Oh boy.
それってかなり責任重大ですから。なのにシステムを私的利用してたなんて知れ
I
た
don't
ら
think
重罪ですよ。
jail's gonna be a problem. I don't think he's worried about jail, if that makes
僕も
sense.
こんなことしてるんで人のこと言えないんですけど。
AG, please. Yeah, I was gonna say. AG laughed at his own casual disclaimer.
ですね。トワさんに何が起こってるのか。
We have been talking for a long time. Are you sure we're not being tapped?
レイさん、五十嵐君と会うってことだったんで、僕も同行させてもらったんです。
Oh boy. Igarashi.
僕ずっと五十嵐君を探してたんですよ。だからラッキーって思って。
Igarashi.
あ、その時に五十嵐君から例の物を受け取りました。
Ooh.
っていうか、託されました。
The you know what? The you know. Ooh, 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 ooh. He was probably referring to the drug samples Igarashi pilfered from the clinic basement.
それからクリニックは遠野さんに抑えられて一時的に閉鎖されちゃいました。
Ooh, okay, okay. They said we gonna hide that.
なので、五十嵐君とレイさんには僕の知り合いのところに行ってもらってます。
Bless. Yes, yes. Gotta protect the kids. Gotta protect the kids.
遠野さんでもそう簡単には見つけられないと思うので安心してくだ
Oh,
さ
I
い。
hope not. Oh, gosh. I just as if I couldn't hate Tono more.
そうか。パーティーの話は聞いてるか。
Party.
いえ、何ですかそれ。
タクに作らせてる新しい薬をプレゼンするパーティーだ。本土のやつらも呼ばれてるらしい。
Hmm?
はあはあ、根回しってことですか。遠野さん、ずっと高里組のやり方は古いって言ってましたもんね。それで人儲けできれば榊さんを出し抜くこともできると。
Indeed.
そのパーティーまでに薬を完成させたいから村瀬先生をせかしてるんですね。
タクが完成間近だと言ってた。その前に何とかしたい。
わかりました。先生とトワさんの状況はどうですか？
Not good. It's not Gucci. It is not Gucci at all.
よくはない。
It's not
という
good.
と
タクは薬の開発を放棄するつもりだ。殺されることになったとしてもな。
Yep.
それはまずいですね。確かに。
Yeah, time is of the essence indeed.
方でも動いてみますが、薬の試作品だけだと正直遠野さんを潰すにはちょっと弱いと思うんですよね。
We need some moves.
なので
We're going to need Dr. Murase to testify as his accomplice. Okay. Alright.
何をすればいい？
まず
What should we
薬
do?
の
Oh
完成を遅ら
gosh.
せてできるだけ引き伸ばしてください。それと
Yeah, yeah.
今度の警察に証言をしてもらいたいんです。今回の件について話せること、もちろん先生も捕まることになります。でも殺されるよりはマシ
Yeah.
ですよね。
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
そうだな。
証言するしないは置いておいたとしても、遠野さんに加担してしまった以上、覚悟は決めてもらわ
Yeah,
ないといけ
it's
ません。
very true. Very true.
先生にそう伝えてもらえますか？
わかった。
Got it.
助かりま
Okay,
す。
kids.
また電話するので、
Let's
その
go,
時まで
baby.
に先生に話しておいてください。
ああ、
Just then, a question rose in the back of my mind.
遠野側につかないのか。
Duh.
僕ですか？
There was a pregnant pause.
本当はこうなる前の進行日の方が好きだったんです。
Mm-hmm.
めちゃくちゃですけど、カオスなりにバランスを保ってるところが面白かったっていうか。 なので、どうせなら今の進行日全部ぶっ壊しちゃった方がすっきりするかな。
Ooh, let's go, AG.
変なやつだな。
Weirdo.
トワさんほどじゃないですよ。
Not as
それ
weird
じゃあ行
as
きますね。トワさん、また。
AG's growing on me a lot. And with that, he hung up. With AG's help, my chances of escape had skyrocketed. I set the phone back in the cradle. Just then, there was a quiet knock at the door. I heard the whir of the door unlocking, and when it opened, Taku peeked in.
調子はどうだ？
How am I feeling? How are we feeling, Towa? So many T's. He walked to the bed carrying a first aid kit under his arm.
そうか。ガーゼと包帯を取り替えよう。その前に体温を
Oh yeah, the
測らせて
temperature
く
is
れ。
important. He could go buck wild. He set the first aid kit on the bedside table and took out the thermometer. Specifically, it was an ear thermometer. With my left hand, I pressed it to my earlobe. Meanwhile, Taku neatly replaced the gauze and bandages on my wounds. The thermometer beeped to let me know it was finished, so I handed it to Taku.
少し熱があるな。夜は眠れたか？
Barely.
ぐっすり
Like a baby.
睡眠薬は？
使わなかった。
Didn't need him.
疲れてたんだろう。
He had his arm basically broken. What are you talking about? He went into the bathroom and returned with a cup full of water. Then he pulled a bunch of different pills from the first aid kit and handed it all to me.
ほら、飲め。
Oh boy. I slowly sat up, washed the pills down with the water, then lowered myself back down onto my side. Oh boy. Exhaling, I closed my eye. I wasn't sleepy for a few minutes. Oh, I wasn't sleepy a few minutes ago, and yet I could feel my consciousness floating down into the dark. Had to be an effect of the pills. In a blink, the pleasant floating sensation whisked me away to slumberland.
もういいだろう。トワを解放してやってくれ。
Oh,
それについては何度も答えたはずだがな。
I was gonna say, I was like, he's not letting go. The sound of voices tickled my eardrums, and I opened my eye a crack. Are they in here? Through my fuzzy vision, I could see gentle lighting and someone facing away from me. Sounded like Taku and Toono were
ト
talking.
ワは何も関係ない。
こいつを逃がした後、お前が仕事を最後までやり遂げるという保証はどこにある？
It's
い
true.
やいややってるのはこっちもよくわかってる。
Mm-hmm.
だからこそこいつを巻き込んだんだ。
Ain't wrong, ain't wrong.
まあ仮にお前が逃げたとしても、地の果てまで追いかけて必ずお前を見つけ出すからな。けじめはきっちりつけてもらわないと困る。
わかってる。
本当か？ならいい加減仕事を終わらせてくれ。じゃなきゃお前の周りの大事なものがもっと危険な目に遭うぞ。
Mercy.
薬は必ず完成させる。
And then he'll throw it in the toilet.
トワを愛人にしたのはどういう魂胆だ？
Ooh, yeah.
魂胆も何もそのまんまだよ。こいつも乗ってきたしな。
男もいけるのか？
いや、ただこいつは例外だ。お前こそ相当とわにご執心のようじゃないか。それなら俺の気持ちもわかるだろう。
これ以上トワに構わないでくれ。
無理だな。いいか村瀬、トワは俺の愛人なんだよ。俺がトワをどう扱おうと、
As much as I hate Toono,
お
I
前には関係の
mean,
ない
he's
ことだ。
right.
それにこいつを愛人にしたのはお前だけでなく、榊にも効くと思ったからだよ。
Yeah. I'm just like, wow, this chapter should just be called Misery because of Taku. Taku is in like so much misery.
トワがいれば、榊も下手に手出しできなくなるだろ。だから手放す気はない。
Yeah. Yeah.
なんと言われようとな。
They're not going anywhere. Oh, poor child.
おいおい、鬼みたいな顔してるぞ。大丈夫か？何度も言ってることだが、
Oh,
お前が仕事を終わらせれば、すべて丸く収まる話だ。お前がノロノロやってる間に、トワが俺なしじゃいられない体になっちまうかもしれないぞ。いいのか？それで。そんな目で睨むなよ。どうせ トワは今までも散々いろんな男と遊んできたんだ。陰媒なんだよ。首輪でもつけておかない限り縛りつけることなんてできない。それでなくてもとんでもない暴れ馬だからな。トワがあまりにも勝手な真似をするようなら勢い余って殺す可能性もある。そこまでしないと止まらない。とんだ跳ねっ返りだ。とにかくお前は早く仕事を終わらせろ。わかったな。
I can't.
だが大事なパーティーが控えてるってのにデスマッチエリアの方で面倒事が起こるし。
gosh, deathmatch area. Let's go. That'll be the next part. I'm assuming.
デスマッチエリアの参加者が大勢2日連続で半殺しにされたんだよ。犯人がまだ捕まってなくてな。うちの連中も使うことになりそうだ。
Fancy.
正直そんなものに構ってる暇はないんだが、ある程度の体裁を取り繕っておくのも大事だからな。
What a mess.
いいがらしも見つ
What
か
a
らないし
mess indeed.
散々だ。とつい愚痴っぽくなったな。それじゃよろしく頼むよ、村瀬先生。
Boy. Toono gave Taku a quick pat on the shoulder, then left the room. Even after he was gone, Taku kept staring at the door. I was fully conscious by then, but I didn't call out to him. And finally, he left the room. Ooh, it's rough out here in the club. Slow damage. Man, it is rough out here in the club. That's for sure. Oh boy. Is it dream time? It's dream time! I was alone, like always. There in the locked room, I lay curled in a ball on the bed with a blanket over my head. Nothing but terrifying silence. It's cold. It hurts. Can't breathe. I want to go outside. I want to run around. I want to explore. I want to talk to somebody. If I can't do any of that, I want to hold someone's hand. That was what I yearned for. My hands were always being grabbed and yanked, but never held. I want to hold hands. I don't care who it is. I want to lace my fingers with theirs. Just then, a giant dark shadow leaned over me. I love the art in these dream sequences, by the way. It's so pretty. For a moment I braced myself, but then a dry, coarse warmth enveloped my hand. Relieved, I relaxed my body. I couldn't see the shadow's face, but I could sense that they were worried for me. Their calloused palm rested atop my hand and gently squeezed. It was deeply reassuring. I was just so happy that someone was holding my hand. Emotions. I awoke from a distressing dream. At some point I had drifted back to sleep. My whole body was slick with sweat, my ears were ringing, and my breathing was elevated. But at least the crushing feeling in my skull had receded slightly, probably thanks to Taku's pills. Slowly I eased myself up into a sitting position and let out a breath. Every time I moved my body, my vision swayed. For a while I sat still, but then I noticed my throat was intensely dry and started craving booze. Not the alcohol again. Using my left hand, I pushed myself off the bed and inched my way to the mini fridge. And I opened the little door and grabbed a bottle at random without even looking at the label. I capped it and immediately started chugging. The chill of the alcohol felt good, clearing a bit of the haze from my mind. After I drained it, I set the empty bottle on the table, and a moment later, there came a knock at the door. I figured whoever it was would let themselves in with a key card, so I waited for that to happen, but it didn't. Dragging my leaden body, I walked to the door. On the other side, I found someone I belatedly realized was Taku. At first I couldn't tell because he was hanging his head, and I couldn't sense his usual energy. He felt like a different person.
Taku.
Uh-oh. I called out to him cautiously, but he walked in without responding. I closed the door, then turned and watched him walk to the other side of the room. He wasn't acting like himself. His smoke had turned dark red, its many tendrils swaying like smoldering embers. To me, it looked like he was trying to hold something in. Oh no, this can't be good. Came to a stop, his back turned, and finally began to speak. Oh gosh, here we go. He looked over his shoulder, his expression concealed by shadow. Oh boy. The question was so sudden, I couldn't parse what he meant. I frowned slightly. I better get myself ready. Something bad, something intense about to happen, huh? Where's my water? Okay, here we go. Cut in loudly, and I blinked at him dubiously. Oh boy. Oh, here we go. Settling.
本当は全力で暴力を振るわれたり傷つけられたりする方が興奮する。でもそんなの好き好んでやるやつなんてそういない。
Sorry. I forgot for a moment that this is Towa. And that I was trying to guess what he was gonna tell Taku. But I forgot Towa is not a sympathetic person. Towa's not gonna be like, oh, but you know, it's whatever. He's like, actually, I just wanna like get beat up. I'm just like, I should have known better. Oh gosh, Towa.
だから妥協してる。盛り上がって発散する瞬間だけは見てるからな。暴力も。
Oh, mercy.
わかった。
What do you mean, alright? I'm scared. He muttered quietly, then slowly turned to face me.
俺がその望みを叶えてやる。
Oh no. He pulled something from his pants pocket. A small scalpel. His eyes glinted darkly as he stared me down. The next instant, he lashed out with the scalpel in his right hand. Instinctively, I recoiled backwards to dodge it, but the motion made my body ache. With my broken arm, I didn't have my usual flexibility. What is going on? Taku is like snapped. Like that's it. Finally. He swung the scalpel again and I dodged sideways, but staggered and tripped over my own feet. He leapt in at that moment and the tip of the blade sent a sharp pain shooting through my cheek. With my gaze fixed on him, I crouched down and edged backwards towards the door. With a growl, he charged at me. Then he grabbed me by the shoulders and slammed me against the wall. What is happening? He was so strong. Okay, I know what's happening. Taku is like losing his mind because he can no longer control any kind of situation at hand, and it's funny because he was so hesitant about the sex, but he's like, violence? Easy. Like, you know, so, but also they are in a high pressure situation. You know, I'm just, okay. Anyway, let's continue. He was so strong you'd never know he had a gunshot wound. As he crushed me against the wall, I slid down to the floor. Yeah, what? Man, you're a lot of work, Taku. You're a lot of work.
Oh my.
Alright. Okay. Why?
Positive.
Let's talk about it. Am I really stressing you out this much? He like did not. He like does not answer, and that's what makes this frustrating. Have you given up on everything? No. Okay. Good sign. Come on, baby. Did you quit thinking for yourself? I told you, this is the conclusion I came to. Okay, good. You said you'd grant my wish. Yeah. No, we shouldn't pacify like this. We gotta go. Pacifying Taku is not the solution. He's pacifying himself. Trying to copy Euphoria. Ooh.
Yes.
Let's try. We got time. You didn't like my answer? Ooh. Suddenly he raised the scalpel high in the air. Ah! He's going to kill me. As soon as the thought crossed my mind, I felt myself accept it. Not like my life was important or had any value. I was gonna have to die sooner or later. Right now, it was looking like sooner, but so what? This thought process took less than a second, and yet to me it felt like an eternity. Well, that's what we got, baby. We're perishing. He swung the scalpel down. Quietly, I closed my eye. There was a strange, airy sound as an impact collided with my body. Confused, I opened my eye and saw the scalpel sticking out of my right arm. Or more accurately, the cast. Oh, I can't do it, huh? Taku gritted his teeth like he was biting something back as he stared at the scalpel. His stiffened cheeks were trembling faintly. For a split second, he looked deeply fragile, like he could shatter at any moment. I mean, yeah. Yes? I reached out with my left hand and cupped his cheek. The instant I touched him, he snapped to his senses. Oh, Taku. His face crumpled and he flung the scalpel to the floor. Oh, yes, this is it. Yeah, finally. Oh, finally, development. Yes, good. Okay. And he pulled me into a tight embrace. So tight it made my bones creak. So tight it was hard to breathe. But I didn't pull away. You can't. His breathy, quavery voice brushed against my ear. Oh. Of course you can't. You're Taku. Yeah, why was that the solution? Oh, Taku. Oh gosh, Taku's really going through it. That was the salute. Get me out. Get me out. No, I'm sorry. Okay, okay, hold on. I think I'm just tired of Toono. So that's why I'm like, everything in this chapter is like making me go buck wild. No, this makes sense for Taku. I will sympathize for him for a moment. And as I mentioned earlier, Taku has lost like any kind of power in this situation. Because before he would just like consistently like helicopter parent Towa, but in this situation he can't do anything. He's been trying to like beg Toono, but Toono's just like no, and there's no changing his mind. And so learning about Towa becoming Toono's lover, etc., just like throws Taku off the deep end, you know. And so Taku is just like, and also Towa keeps getting beat up all the time, so you know, you can only imagine you know, fragile little Taku, you know, out here. So yeah, in his mind he probably snapped and was just like, I'll just, you know what, if it's gonna be anyone, it's gonna be me. But he can't. Taku is too fragile. So I was just like, ain't no way, bruh. Ain't no way. Oh, I was gonna say, I was like, are we gonna talk about this? Towa looks really pretty here, even though he's literally like beat up. Like, oh, poor thing. I was pretty sure I had the right idea, but Taku denied it firmly. His eyes were shining with determination. That's an interesting choice of words. Because you could finally say it, Taku. I swear, I'm so tired. I'm so tired, Taku. He hesitated and fell silent. Get me out! Oh, I'm so sick of this. It's killing me. It's killing me. It makes him such a good character, but it frustrates me so much. Ah? Ah? Ooh. Okay, okay. Ooh. Taku's lips curled in self-depreciation. No, stupid. Oh, killing me. Oh, Towa looks so pretty. Oh, sorry. I'm like, this is supposed to be emotional. I'm just like, Towa looks so pretty, even though he has like a billion bandages on him. Hey, yo. Man, Taku's going through it. He really like any kind of validation from Towa. It's like eats that up, bro. Like he's just like, even if it's like nothing. So this is probably like he's probably like eating it up. He's just like, I will live for 1,000 years just because of this. Taku closed his eyes and pursed his lips like he was trying to hold something in. When he opened his eyes again, they were brimming with resolve. I could hear the pain in his voice. Gotta get him to talk. Yeah, please. Yeah, please. I'm losing my mind. I can't. All this time. Is this? Okay, we already did those. Is it this one? Yes. Okay, good. And then I think the other one would be the arm, right? Yeah. Okay. I feel like this is the easiest. This is the easiest interrogation.
俺に対して過保護だってレイは言ってた。
だろうな。ずっとお前のことを気にかけていた。子供の頃から面倒を見てるんだ。そうなるのも仕方がないだろう。
Okay, okay, okay. Ooh, we're getting there, we're getting there. Yeah, come on, bruh.
お前の望みを教えてくれ。
俺が本当は
Yes, fool, I'm so tired,
何
bro.
をしたかったのか。
I'm so tired. I'm exhausted. Like, come on.
Taku.
Like, the therapy is rough, okay? Taku. Okay, let's go.
ネガティブ。どうしたいんだ？
Do you have something to hide? No, nothing like that. Okay. Let's try, let's try. Looks like you already know the answer. Okay. Yeah. Come on.
興味がある。
I'm interested to know what exactly you want. Interested. Come on. Spill it! Do it! I'm so tired. I'm so tired, Taku. Well, spit it out already. I do want to talk to you, but I'm not really sure what it is I'm feeling. Yes? Taku looked away sadly. Nah. Okay, we're gonna try this again. Okay. We're getting close. We're almost there. Come on.
逃げるな。
Oh gosh, I gotta do it all over again. Oh, this pain. Okay, give me a moment.
捕まえた。
Un momento. We'll be right back. Okay.
ポジ
Okay.
答えてくれ。
Do. We're just gonna go real quick because that was technically 3 sections, so. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, come on, besties. Provoke. Okay.
Negative.
I can remember everything. This one. Okay, we're gonna booty bounce. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Skip text. Okay. Here we go. Yeah.
何を引き出す？
Here we go. Okay, it's this one.
過保護。
Yes, good.
俺にた
Okay. All right. Purposefully, right?
ネガティブ
That's what I picked. I think that's what I picked. Okay. Let's try.
お前
So you're gonna run away. Just tell me what you want. Let's see. Maybe that works. Just tell me what you want. No, I gotta keep pushing. But I just don't know which ones it is. To me, it looks like you've stopped trying it all. Yeah, maybe I have. Okay. I can't see. Okay. Well, let's go. This is what I got. The way things stand, I can't see where you're coming from at all. Right. Did I do this wrong? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. We're gonna do this again.
Positive. 答えてくれ
Okay. So, give me a moment. Okay. This
Negative.
one, yes. Isn't it this one?
No.
It's so difficult. Okay.
Positive.
Taku is so difficult. Okay, let's go.
タクが持つ傷は
Okay. Here's what I'm gonna do. Okay, because then I don't have to keep going back here. Okay. Okay. Here.
過保護 俺にた
Okay. Then purposely ask him. Okay, yeah?
ポジティブ話せ
And tell me the truth.
そうか
よし
This correct? Looks like you already know the answer. Yeah, let's do this too.
興味が
Interested.
あああ
Well, spit it out already. I got it. Okay. This is it. This gotta be right? Right? Hold on. I'm gonna save this here because I'm paranoid. Okay. Taku was terrified of what might change if he confessed the truth. He was scared that I would reject him and then things would never go back to the way they were before. And no amount of me telling him otherwise would truly convince him. The only thing that could prove it to him was all the time we'd spent together. What had I felt with him over the years that led to today? I would have to talk about it.
何を引き出す
I got you.
ずっと見て
That's it. We're in. Let's go.
お前とは長い付き合いだ
お前はおとなしい子供だった。
Oh my goodness.
静かにうつむいて俺の診察を受けていた。注射にも声一つ出さず、こっちが不安になるくらいにな。だから気になって仕方がなかった。頭の片隅にいつもお前のことがあった。
もう迷うことはないな。
は？
全部お前にとって譲れないものがあったから、そのためにやった。そうだよな。
は？
そうだ。
Come on, baby. Come on. Oh. Yes. We're here. It's come. We're here. We're here. Oh, man.
子供の頃からお前をずっと見ているうちに、いつからか守りたいと思うようになったんだ。
Okay. Okay.
はじめは純粋な親心みたいなものだった。この子の成長をこれから先もずっと見守りたいと、そう思っていた。だがお前が成長するにつれて、何か俺の中で違う気持ちが芽生えているような気がしたんだ。それも長年見守ってきた情なんだろうと思ってた。そう納得してたんだ。お前がボロボロになって帰ってきたことがあったと。
I thought back to that day, the shootout that took my right eye. At Shinkomi General Hospital, Taku removed my exploded eyeball. Personally, I didn't miss it that much, but it must have changed me on a subconscious level. Granted, I was always a bit of a vagabond, but after the incident, I stopped coming home almost entirely. That said, I was living alone in a condo that Sakaki acquired for me, so I wasn't too attached to it. It was around then that euphoria first started painting people's desires too. As a result, I started getting injured more often, and Taku would chew me out while he administered first aid. Then he opened his clinic and I started coming by to get eye checkups. When I heard the third floor apartment was empty, I started hanging out there whenever I was bored. Then at some point, I progressed to sleeping there. Taku always rolled his eyes at me but never tried to kick me out. On the contrary, he said it made my appointments a lot quicker. After that, I officially moved in. Later on, I went a little overboard and got badly injured during a euphoric episode. I was still an amateur at reading people, and the guy did a number on me. As I walked down the street dripping blood, I was sure I was going to die that night. The next thing I knew, I was standing outside the clinic. I could still remember the look on Taku's face. He was so enraged you'd think the whole world had come to an end.
あの時、本当は苦しくて、悔しくて、気が変になりそうだった。今考えると笑える話なんだが。真面目な顔でお前の怪我の手当てをしながら、心の中ではパニックになってたんだ。
Of course, of course. Oh, I'm so relieved. I thought I was gonna go into another part and it was gonna take much longer. Like, I was like, come on, Taku, kill me.
悩んで悩み抜いて、結局考えるのをやめた。お前のひどい姿を見て一時的なショックを受けただけで忘れちまえば収まるだろうと。だがお前が朝倉に傷つけられた姿を見たとき、また同じ苦しさが蘇ってきて、それで
And then Taku got yandere right that night.
気づいたんだ。
terrible.
俺はお前を失いたくない。絶対に手放したくないって。お前はおふくろさんに似てない
Not
よ。
like his mom?
まったく。
You want to elaborate on that, Taku? As he spoke, a small bashful smile crept up on his
お
face.
前のそばにいたい。できることならお前をずっと守りたい。今はそう。
Okay, okay, good. Good. This is good. He's finally saying things. Oh man. This has been a journey. This is only the first guy. He hung his head like he had run out of energy.
本当にすまない。こんなことを言う資格は俺にはないんだ。お前にひどいことをしたんだから。
ひどいこと。
Oh?
俺は
Uh-huh,
お
uh-huh.
前に
You? He grimaced bitterly. Then I realized what he was probably about to say.
俺に埋めたウェブタグのことか。
His eyes flew open, and he looked at me in disbelief.
どうしてそれを。
いろいろあってエイジから俺の部屋に電話がかかってきた。その時に全部聞いた。
エイジか。
Avery knows. Taku slumped his shoulders in defeat.
本当にやったんだな。
Oh, honey.
あ
Ooh. Without looking up, he continued.
きっかけは朝倉に傷つけられたお前の姿を見た時だった。朝倉の傷の縫合手術をした時にお前の背に
Ooh.
ウェブタグを埋めたんだ。
Yeah, he lost his damn mind.
あの時の俺は完全にどうかしてた。手術を終えて冷静になると後悔が押し寄せてきた。本当に謝っても許されないことをした。
He let out a heavy sigh.
だが朝倉のことがあってから俺は最悪の状況ばかり考えるようになった。
I think the saddest thing about Asakura is that the painting just wasn't as good as Ikuina's. Sorry, I'm so mean. It wasn't even as good.
お前が俺の知らないところで手遅れになったらと、その考えが頭をちらついて気が狂いそうだった。
Whew.
だとしてもそんなことは言い訳にならない。許してくれとは言わない。本当に悪かった。
Boy.
ウェブタグは必ず取り出す。お前が望むなら今すぐにでも。
Ooh. Emotion welled up and his expression twisted in pain.
怖いんだ。母親を助けられなかったあの日から何かを失うということが
He's finally saying it. He's finally saying it.
怖い。
Bye-bye.
許されなくてもいいと本当に思ってるのか。
Quietly, I broke my extended silence and he stiffened.
それは
Just say it, Taku. Say it.
目を見る。
Hesitantly, he met my gaze.
許されなくても本当
Yeah,
にい
you
いの
better
か。
say it, boy. You better say it.
それは
Well, but.
答えろ。
Come on. I stared straight into his eyes.
許されたいよ。お前に許してほしい。
Yes, yes, yes. Say it. Say it. Say it. Ooh, I'm getting dry. The moment the words left his lips, I balled my left hand into a fist and decked him in the face. Yes. I wasn't used to punching with my left hand, and it tingled. That was a good one. Furrowing his brow, he gritted his teeth and stared at the floor. His voice shook ever so slightly. Just then, there came a knock at the door. Ooh. We're having a moment here. Okay, we finally made a breakthrough. This better be important. Taku looked up and glared sternly in the direction of the sound. It was the meathead who had it out for me. Taku walked to the door. He opened it and the other man peeked in.
怪我の様子を見てたんだ。
そうか。兄貴がその怪我野郎に伝言だ。あと1時間くらいで戻るから、兄貴の部屋で待ってろだと。
Uh-oh.
わかった。
Taku quietly closed the door, then walked back to me. He wore a bitter scowl on his face.
トーノがお前を。
Silently, I moved to get up, but Taku gently pressed a hand to my shoulder to stop me. Say it! Without a word, he gazed into my eye. He's gotta go.
ダメだ。
そういうルールだ。愛人としての。
His fingers dug into my shoulder.
それでもダメだ。
はいよ。
トーノが機嫌を損ねて暴れるぞ。
それでも。
Finally. Biting his lip, he shook his head.
ダメだ。愛人なんて。
Come on.
愛人なんて。やめろ。
ここにいる限り無理だ。
俺の方が無理だ。
Oh! Out of nowhere, he started screaming. Then he grabbed my other shoulder.
お前がトーノを相手にするなんて考えたくない。そうなるくらいならやっぱり殺してしまいそうだ。
Work. The look in his eyes had surpassed desperation, straight to madness. Quietly, I gazed back at
お
him.
前はどうしたい？
Say it! Say it!
言えよ。
Say it! He closed his eyes in resignation, then looked at me once
お
more.
前に対する気持ちはずっと肉親の情に近いんだと思ってたんだ。
Yes!
違った。俺は。
Come on, Taku, you got it. He paused there, but quickly found the will to continue.
お前に惹かれてるんだ。俺だけを見てほしいと思ってる。だからトーノの愛人なんてやめろ。
His fingers slowly grew tighter and tighter. I let out a chuckle and he scowled.
人に言わせておいて笑うなよ。
I mean, I'd laugh too. I laughed too. This took so long, Taku. This took so long. I was in so much pain. This was so difficult. Oh my goodness. I was painful. I was about to leave you here. I was really gonna tell Towa to leave you booty here.
いや、昔からずっとこうだったと思って。
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
昔から
Mm-hmm.
タクはいつも俺のことを心配して真剣に俺を見てた。
Every time he examined me, it triggered this ticklish sense of nostalgia, and I found it strangely soothing. I'd probably always felt it, but only after I began to focus on Taku did I truly become aware of it. It was a feeling drawn out from the forgotten memories of my past. When I was a kid, I probably yearned for my appointments with Taku. Whenever he showed up, that was how I knew I'd be alright. After all, he would always make the pain go away. When I was young, I must have sensed that he was the only one who seriously cared about my well-being.
覚えてるのか? 昔のことを.
A little bit.
なんとなく。それに、夢にお前が出てきたって言っただろ。
確かに。
子供の頃の俺は、お前が来ると安心した。お前が来るのをずっと待ってた。こいつは唯一、
How quickly that changes, huh?
そう考えると、こうしてずっと一緒にいるのも不思議なことじゃないのかもな。
Bro, I feel like so fulfilled right now. Taku finally like out here. Okay. Yeah.
お前のそばにいるのは居心地がいいって思ってた。
Also, Towa is saying nice things, like, you know, saying nice things. Furthermore, I never admit it out loud, but I can remember how I felt when Taku got shot. In that moment, it felt like I'd suddenly lost my footing in the world. If I had to guess, it was probably fear of losing him. I'd never confronted that feeling until the moment I thought he might have died. Now I understood. That was the moment I stopped taking him for granted.
愛人はやめる。
He looked at me in confusion. Then he fixed me with a probing gaze.
それはどういう意味だ?
やめた方がいいだろ。
Yeah, exactly.
もちろんそうだが。
正直、恋愛感情だとかそういうのはよくわからない。けど、俺はずっとお前のそばにいるのは悪くないと感じてた。
I don't know anything about romance, but you know, it's kind of nice.
それに、面白い言葉も聞けた。
That's not a lie. That's true.
面白い。
Look at you, you're a fool. Like I let the silence fall. Holding eye contact, I slowly leaned in.
他の誰かに取られるくらいなら殺すなんて。お前の口から聞くと。
That's very true. That's so true. I too did not expect that, you know, because Taku was very like, well, as long as Towa's here, you know.
誰かに取られなかったとしたら、俺がお前のものになるとしたら、
Oh yeah.
どうする?
Tell me. Give me the tea, Taku.
教
Give
え
me
ろ
the
よ。
tea. Give me the tea. Give me the tea.
とは。
Squinting affectionately, he reached out and gently stroked my cheek. Then his hand slipped behind my head and pulled me close. Hesitantly, he looked away. Then he let out a breath and, with all of his courage, pressed his lips to mine. You know, Tono did call for you. You do remember that, right? It was soft for a moment, and then he pulled away. This repeated a few more times, and I nibbled lightly on his lower lip. He kissed me passionately this time, plunging his tongue into my mouth. I welcomed it without hesitation and extended my own tongue in kind. Oh, we getting. His arms around me tightened as his kiss grew more intense. The feeling of his wet tongue on mine made the back of my skull tingle. How long had it been since I last relished the simple sweetness of physical intimacy? Our lips made a sticky, wet sound as they came together, slowly melting away each other's sense of rationality. What I desired most was the thrill of pain. Normally, these sweet tickles would do nothing for me, and yet for some reason, I found it arousing. Probably because he was someone I wouldn't have considered before now. Besides, I hadn't kissed like this in a long time, so I probably just wasn't used to it. Work. His tongue retracted and he pulled away briefly, pressing his forehead to mine. It was clear he worried for my injuries. I chuckled. Classic Taku, always dutiful and kind. With a wry smirk, he stripped off his white lab coat. Let's go! Let's go! Then he cupped my cheeks in both hands, almost like he was checking my temperature, and pressed his lips to my neck. Ooh. Ooh. Then his hand slid up my shirt. His faintly sweaty palm traveled from my stomach to my chest, tracing over my many scars. Ooh. My scars were my weak spot. I let out a moan of excitement. His lips descended from my neck to my clavicle, where his tongue traced over the raised bone while his free hand unbuttoned my shirt. Oh boy! With my bare chest exposed, he gazed hungrily at the big scar that cleaved my torso in two. It felt like he was... and it was making me squirm. I sewed this wound too. He murmured to himself as he pressed a finger to it. His dry, calloused skin slowly traced my scar, sending a shiver down my spine. And this one, and this one. One by one, he touched my clavicle, my solar plexus, the spot just above my navel, and all the other scars. Getting frisky. He pressed a hand to my cheek. Then, with a tender, loving smile, he kissed me on the lips. After we caught our breath, I pulled off the rest of my clothes and climbed into bed. I hadn't noticed any pain while we were in the act, but now that it was over, my broken arm was screaming at me. Nothing I couldn't handle, but when Taku found out about it, he gave me painkillers from the first aid kit and a cup of water. I took the pills with some water, then laid myself down on my back. Taku sat on the edge of the bed. Yo. Relieved, he nodded to himself, then let out a tired laugh. Got him an inquiring look, and he slowly shook his head. The old times. He gazed wistfully into the distance. Every time.
よく言えばおとなしくて手がかからないんだが、男の子ってのは好き勝手に暴れるくらいが普通だろ？
True.
だからあの時は家庭環境に問題があるんじゃないかとかいろいろと考えた。その後も大変なことが続いて、お前はあまり覚えてないみたいだが。
そんなに悲惨だったのか？
His expression darkened.
まあ、そうだな。
俺の母親は惚れてたんだろ。
惚れてたって っていうより憧れてたんだ。綺麗な人だったからな。
どんな女だった？
俺もお前を診察するときしか会わなかったんだが、優しそうではあったな。それにいつも寂しそうにしてるというか、儚さみたいなもんがあったよ。何かを内に秘めているんだろうって思わせるような、そういう雰囲気があった。
He pursed his lips. Silence fell and drowsiness began to creep over me. Maybe I was just that relieved to have Taku around. As I was nodding off, I noticed him looking at me like he had something on his mind.
いや、
言えよ。
He averted his gaze like he was debating whether to say it. Then finally he looked back at me.
いや、気にするな。
は？
This was the opposite of what I expected after that long pregnant pause. I frowned.
気になる。
大したことじゃない。
What do you mean it's not important? You better say it. I voiced my dissatisfaction in the form of a big, exaggerated sigh. He smiled stiffly, then composed himself and looked back at me intently.
いろいろと本当にすまなかった。ウェブタグも必ず外す。
あ
あとはトーノか。
Yeah.
それなんだけど。
Got that goon. I used my left arm to push myself into a sitting position. He hastily reached out to
トー
help
ノは
me.
本土の連中を巻き込むためのパーティーを計画していて、開催されるのは1週間後。そのために薬の完成を急いでるんだよな。
ああ、1週間後の午後5時だ。
俺たちがトーノに捕まる前、五十嵐がクリニックの地下から薬の試作品を盗んだって知ってるか？
そうだったのか。
Work. He pressed a hand to his mouth in
トー
contemplation.
ノには報告しなかったんだが、確かに試作品が消えていた。だから間違いなく誰かが入ったとは思ってたんだ。そうか、五十嵐君だったか。
Please be safe.
試作品は今エイジが持ってる。エイジはそれを本土の警察へ持っていくつもりらしい。けどそれだけじゃトーノを潰すには弱いから、お前に証言してほしいって。
なるほど、証言か。
Unsurprisingly, he looked conflicted about it. He testified he would get arrested too.
どうする？
やろう。
He lowered the hand from his mouth and nodded firmly.
ああ、最初から逃げるつもりはない。トーノに協力したことは事実だからな。
そうか。できるだけ時間稼ぎをしてくれ。エイジからまた連絡があるはずだから。
Just then, someone started pounding on the door.
おい、寝てるのか？
トーノだ。
Oh, here we go. Oops. Taku rose to his feet and answered the door. There stood Toono, visibly furious.
なんでお前がいる？
You know why he's here.
トアの様子を見てたんだ。かなりひどいからな。
さすがに骨折は答えたか。
He scoffed.
とにかくトアは絶対安静だ。
うるさい。お前、薬はどうした？もう完成してるのか？
目処は立ってる。あと少しだ。
だったら早く仕事に戻れ。もう時間がない。
間に合うかは保証できないと最初に言っただろ。時間が足りないと。
それでも終わらせるという契約だ。当たり前だ。
Ooh, with that warning, he walked off. Taku sighed, shut the door, and returned to the
トーノ
bed.
はかなり苛立ってるな。 ひとまず俺は戻るが、時間稼ぎは何とかしてみる。それと、お前に手出しをするなとも言っておく。
聞かないだろ、そんなの。
説得する。1週間、お前は部屋から出ないようにしてくれ。
ああ、エイジから連絡があったら伝える。
His expression stiff, he stroked my hair and left the room. Slow damage. That's a good place to stop. Am I right? Ooh, we made it, you guys! We're not quite done with Taku's chapter, but we finally got Taku to open up in more ways than one. Oh boy, that was a wild ride. Okay. So we didn't finish chapter 3, but it seems like we're getting close. It seems like the next part is going to cover the party. So next part, I think we'll definitely reach the end of chapter 3 and hopefully start the next one. Oh my gosh, this is so wild. Okay. A lot of this is very censored, so, but you know what, it's all good. It's all good. Thank you for joining me today, you guys, for this part of Slow Damage. I'm having the time of my life. Still hate Toono. I'm sure after this playthrough is done, I might end up changing my mind a little bit, but oh man, he's so bad. Like, it's so good, but it's so bad, you know? So, but oh my gosh, yeah, Taku finally admitting his feelings, like admitting how he feels. It doesn't even have to be, you know, it doesn't even have to be like, I love Towa. It really, all it had to be was what he said, where he's like, I don't know when I changed and I don't really know how to explain it, but I feel similar to this. I feel this way about you. And I'm like, finally. I'm like a proud mom. So proud of Taku. Alright. Anyway, thank you again, guys, for joining me in this part of Slow Damage. It has been a pleasure to continue playing this game. It is so good. You know, even when Towa makes me all nervous, you know, which is 99% of this game. But I think that's just part of the game. That's part of the game's charm, I guess. So scary. But okay. Thank you again. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay well. Don't forget, if you're interested, since you're watching this video, if you're interested, I host a boys love podcast called Can Smooch Tho, available on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts. Season 1 is up. We are working on season 2 soon, so look out for that. Otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in, as always. So please rest well, and I will see you guys later. Good night.